Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another exciting round of the series we all love on Sundays. It is none other than the UKSimRacing Sunday GT3 Championship Season 17, as proudly brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing, and hosted by SimRacing International. It was an absolutely wet and windy previous round at Daytona. Round number 2 was absolutely flooded, but in the flood and in the deluge we got to see some of the finest racing action from our drivers that we have seen so far this season, and indeed in quite some time in this series. Not to say previous rounds and indeed previous seasons have been a disappointment, but we got to see our drivers there to live up to the ultimate test, which was the mixed weather conditions. But here we are today for round number 3 of 10 in the championship, and we have made our way all the way from the US of A and exchanged those rainy skies for brilliant sunshine. Portugal is playing host, and with it the Algarve International do Algarve, more commonly referred to as the Portimão circuit in reference to the local city and municipality. This is a circuit that was only born in 2008, but many liken it to a circuit from a much earlier time in history, with the fact that many would say that this is the equivalent of the modern day Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, or indeed the Nürburgring Nordschleife, in the fact that over the course of its 2.85 mile length and 15 quarters, it is more than the sum of its parts. A circuit that marries together a whole range of quarters, and indeed plenty of elevation changes over the entirety of the lap, plus some extended straights. It is a circuit that definitely has an old school feel at heart, and when you add in the modern Formula 2 motorsporting circuits, which is a wide open racing surface, it does mean that every quarter around here has an opportunity to go at least 2 if not 3 wide, and therefore deliver some absolutely incredible racing action from lights out to checker flag. And even in just a qualifying mode around here, a circuit which is absolutely loved to drive around for the simple reason there's always attempts to be found around here, and there's nothing quite like going through the rises and falls of the Portimão circuit. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this post-round broadcast from circuit side as you get ready to tune in for another round of brilliant racing action here, live only via a premiere on the SimRacing International YouTube channel. Indeed, go to youtube.com and search for SimRacing International or SRI, and you can be tuning in there tonight, and indeed over the course of the entirety of the season as we bring you all the racing action as if it were live. Now, what does that mean? Well, the racing itself occurred as of yesterday on Sunday the 25th of January 2026, but we're here to bring it to you as if it were live this Monday the 26th of January, and therefore we do not know in the commentary booth what is happening right now in the early stages of the qualifying session that's ongoing in the background, nor what has happened in the practice session up until it's just literally happened on the replay we're taking a look back at. And of course we don't know anything about the net outcome of the race, which is only around the corner in approximately 25 minutes time. So therefore it's as close as possible to the raw live viewing experience for us here in the commentary booth, and that's how we're going to target it for you guys and girls tuning in at home as we say hello to you all. In the commentary booth you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, and I'll be bringing you all your racing action as it unfolds over the entirety of the season. And well, we've had plenty of stories to tell over the first 2 rounds alone, and let alone another 8 to go, including the one today. Many will be asking themselves the question, where exactly do we close the book on this season? Because I think it's going to be an absolute thriller. Without further ado, let's give you a recap then of the first 2 rounds and what's lying in store for today. Because as we take a look back at the calendar, last time out it was the 18th of January that our drivers took on the Daytona International Speedway's road course. Now, of course, being a prelude to the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona in real life and running in parallel with the iRacing official 24 Hours of Daytona event, well, what we've got to see in real life over the weekend that's just gone on by is it was not necessarily rain, but plenty of fog that seemed to be shipped from the Nürburgring. Meanwhile, on the simulator, we got to see was a whole arrangement of conditions, but for our own version of it, albeit not 24 hours, only 60 minutes of racing, well, we got to see the heavens absolutely open up and deliver a downpour. However, in conditions that perhaps see some races red flagged, we didn't bring out the red flag, we brought out the yellow flags for a few instants, but what we also got to see is our drivers bring out the green flag for some of the finest driving we have seen from many of them so far this season. In our elite class, well, one driver demonstrated that sometimes to finish first you must finish without making a mistake, and that was none other than Andrea Miato, who lined up on pole, and whilst under major pressure all the way through the race from Henry Strand, in the end was able to show to the Beta Frost driver that sometimes all you got to do is drive at 90% and not make the error which could cost you the win. And that's exactly what happened to Strand, and in the end Miato was able to come away with that victory in his Aston Martin V8 Vantage Evo. As for the Pro Class, well, what we got to see in the Pro Class was a very close battle between Matthew Croft and Sean Connor. But if I was to say to you the fact they were not the 2 big stars in qualifying, you probably wouldn't believe me. It was Bruno Battica who absolutely led the way in qualifying in the dry, only then to find that when it went to the wet and into turn number 1 on lap number 2, well, turn number 1 claimed several drivers over the race distance, although they all made it through the opening corner absolutely unscathed on the first lap. However, on lap number 2, there was a big error for several drivers, including Bruno Battica, who went to the white lines, and those white lines lines, took him off the road, and he made his way back on, but not without the loss of major positions. So then it was over to Matthew Croft to lead the way, but in the late stages, it was Sean Connor who came charging up behind him, only to find in there wasn't enough time to try and make the move happen, particularly when he got within a second and found all the spray. As for the Interclass, what we got to see was a season opening second at the Saxon Ring for Andrew Montine, was then followed up by a race win at Daytona, but it wasn't his win to take necessarily, with Robin Aston taking the pole position, but everyone who seemed to pick up the lead of the race in the early stages received it as the poison chalice, and when Andrew Montine took it over, well, he managed to find the antidote, and with it was able to survive to take that win, and well, it definitely has been an arrangement of stories. But what it does mean is that we're not quite bringing the standings coming into this round, not just because of the fact that we had a slight delay on bringing them out, but also for the simple reason, as they're not available, we're not going to try and bring them up on the screen, but what we will do is talk a little bit more about the positions of our drivers when we do head back to circuit side in qualifying. But here we come today then for the Portimão Grand Prix circuit. And of course on the 25th of January here we come to the end of our first month for 2026. How quickly has January flown us by, ladies and gentlemen. Before we know it, we'll be back in December once again and Christmas will be here again. But after today we'll make it away back to the United States and back to the state of Florida, intriguingly. But it will be for a first time circuit on the schedule. It'll be the Miami International Autodrome's Grand Prix circuit there. And well, that's going to be around to savour under sunny skies once again. If you're wondering about when we're going to see mixed conditions once again, it'll be in round number 6 next up at the VIR full course in the US of A in the US state of Virginia, but you've got to wait until the 15th of February for that one, and later on, of course, at the Nürburgring across the price tracker of the GP circuit on what will be the 1st of March in round number 8. But we've got a long way to go. But as we go on to our round for today then, let's introduce our circuit in a little bit more detail. Here is the Portimão Grand Prix circuit in a two-dimensional view. Thank you to iRacing.com, not just the brilliant simulator, but the fantastic track maps that come with it. And as you look at this map of the circuit located near Portimão in the Faro district of the Algarve region of Portugal, which is where it gets its full formal title from. Well, whether it's 2.85 miles of length or 4.59 kilometres, depending on your preference of units, the one thing that doesn't change is the 15 corners. But as the drivers make their way down that start-finish straight, they'll immediately be blighted by a huge drop as they'll plunge their way down to Primera corner at turn number 1. Through the opening right hand of the goat, and it'll be a right-hand kink to number 2, and then they make their way hard onto the brakes for the first of several hairpins at turn number 3. Lagos corner will invite plenty of overtaking action, there's no doubt about that, but as they exit out, they switch back into the uphill rise of turn number 4, where they'll find at the apex it's blind and it's off camber as well, and that's where we can expect on cold tyres in the early stage of the race that some drivers may end up with a lot of oversteer that could send them spinning wide. But get it right, and then they'll charge their way downhill in towards turn number 5, hard onto the brakes they'll go into the hairpin, before making their way back on themselves, up through the kink of 6, and downhill they'll go once again into turn number 7, which is all about positioning the car well and getting the rear settled down in preparation for the hard braking zone at turn number 8 at Samson Corner. As they then make the way out of the corner that's off camber on entry but becomes cambered on exit, they'll have to find a fine balance between throttle and steering input to make sure they don't have a spin, but get it right, they'll then make their way over the rise and down into turn number 9 before sweeping their way up into Portimão Bend at turns 10 and 11. That's an interesting corner pair, this one, because you brake at turn number 10 for the purposes of turn number 11, you don't brake for 10 specifically, and therefore it's all about positioning your car right in the middle of the road to get the optimum line. Should you do so and find that late apex of turn number 11, then you'll be carrying all the speed down through turn number 12 to go uphill once again, but this time it's a pair of hairpins that await you, switching back from turns 13 to 14, when you expect plenty of big dives under braking, and as they make their way downhill at our Sagres corner, where they'll build up momentum, it's then going to be a flat-out run all the way to Gout Bend in these rather dry conditions, and it could be flat-out all the way to the start-finish line as they make their way over the rise and down through turn number 15 before going uphill into the start-finish straight to do it all over again, time and time again. Those flows are going to feel endless until they get to the very finish. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, that's our recap finished, at least in terms of where we are today. Let's make our way back to circuit side. And so as we do, we are definitely in the throes of the qualifying session. We do still have the best part of what is approximately 19 minutes to go. But as we do see Henrik Riestrand out there at the moment, well, he is currently your fastest driver in this qualifying session provisionally, subject to all these laps being validated, of course, by the iRacing stewarding system for any potential off-tracks. But it is looking as though Strand right now is definitely trying to lay down a marker. Now, understandably here, he walked away from Daytona, ruining what could have been a win, given the fact he did take the lead after the pit stops at Daytona, ahead of Andrea Miata Miato, but it was an error under braking into turn number 7 that saw this man make his way to the tyre barrier. His one and only mistake in the wet, notable one that is, I should say, but it was such a critical one. Whereas the man who leads the championship, albeit on results, as he makes his way around here, because the fact that Strand and Miato are tied on points at the moment, how Miato leads based on result count back, given the fact he has a win, whereas Strand has 2 second place finishes by comparison, so this man's first and third. Right now, Miato, he made sure not to make any errors in the wet, at least that we could see, and it just goes to show you that in that Aston Martin V8 Evo, which we do like to think of as a jack of all trades car, master of none, and it's much stronger than some of its parts in some respects, well, sometimes you just need to be smart, and therefore the results will come to you. And there's something to be said about that, although it's not to belittle Strand or indeed the Beta Frost team and the efforts they put in. But what we are seeing as well in this elite class, there are plenty of other names who do deserve their chance in the spotlight. The man who lined up in the front row alongside his teammate Miato at Daytona, Pietro Antonio Pasquarello, in his Lamborghini Huracan Evo, it went very backwards by comparison. He had a good start, but suddenly it all fell apart over the opening 15 minutes, and he'll be hoping for a much stronger day today, given the fact that right now he won't want his teammate to take to the spotlight entirely, and also he wants to reinforce him, particularly for the team's championship, but the team are not looking as strong currently. But we'll have to see what's going to happen, no doubt about it, as Pasquarello right now will look to put the first 2 rounds behind him, because he has had a frustrating first 2 rounds of the season. The Sachsenring, it didn't go too well either. But as he heads onwards, well, that's a quick recap of where our elite drivers perhaps stand. But what about in the pro class, I hear you ask? Well, your winner, of course, from the previous round, Matthew Croft, he was looking very good in the wet, no doubt about it, in his Mercedes AMG Evo. But as we said earlier, keep in mind he was not the pole sitter. The pole sitter was Bruno Batica for the old Dudes in Cars outfit, of which we now have the proper team names for them. And therefore, you'll be definitely seeing those team names for the Midlife Crisis and also the Amnesia teams are out there. And indeed, I do believe all of our old Dudes in Cars drivers there taking a play on some of the things that do blight individuals who move into their older generation. But as we do see Matthew Croft in, not talking about his generation there, and I have to be careful of what I say, because otherwise the Who might be claiming copyright at this point. If you know, you know. Well, right now, the 113 driver, the second fastest of our pros out there, and well, he definitely seems to be running a bit of a theme here in the pro class, which is he's not the fastest on the qualifying lap, but he's definitely one of the strongest over the race distance. Currently the fastest driver in pro class in qualifying. He's parked up there in the pit lane, a bit of an awkward spot. That's Kyle Roy. Now, what exactly went wrong for him at Daytona was the Corvette and the wet conditions did not want to combine together after what is his absolute heroics at the Sachsenring to take the opening win of the season. And well, his Stingray right now definitely feeling a lot happier in the dry compared to in the wet. And I wonder if we'll see that again here, given he's the provisional fastest of the pro class. But it'd be rude of us not to talk about some of our other big stars in the pro class, including none other than what is Sean Connor. But I do believe Sean Connor, at the moment at least, not in attendance today. And I wonder if that might be due to a clash with the real-life Daytona 24 hours at the time this race taking place. I can't quite see him at the moment, unless my eyes do deceive me. He's not on the grid today, and hopefully we'll see him back in a week's time, because it's definitely going to be a big miss to not see Sean Connor here today. Very quick driver from the US of A, of course. And hopefully we'll see the Connor Bros team back out in full force. I don't see either of them here, either Sean or Shane. And well, as we do look further through the pro class, we also do have none other than Hendrik Zilka, a man in his old Dudes in Cars Ford Mustang, who right now is definitely hoping for a little bit more as the season goes on. It's been a bit of a slow start to the season, but it can't be a fast start for everybody, to be fair, and we look forward to seeing what he's going to be able to deliver here today, as he is currently the third fastest in the pro class of this qualifying session. And we do know this Ford Mustang can be quite strong here at Portimão based on the current balance of performance, whereas at Daytona in the dry, the Mustangs would have struggled a little bit based on how the BOP was, not for the Daytona 24-hour event on iRacing, but the general GT3 BOP has actually seen the Ford Mustang go through this weird transitional phase whereby it is a car that's actually losing out some of the high-speed circuits from what we've been able to gather data-wise, but it still goes very strong at most circuits on straights, but not the ones where you have plenty of straights, oddly enough, or plenty of full throttle zones. And definitely it does seem as though the BOP gives and it takes away, and it's definitely given today to the Ford drivers. But as he makes his way onwards, we then come along to talking about the Interclass and the story there. Well, this is your championship leader for Axis SimSport as he makes his way onwards. It's Andre Montine, and right now the number 7 driver in his McLaren 720S Evo. Well, he's currently the fastest of your Inters in qualifying provisionally, and his story definitely has been one whereby he's been moving forward very happily. But again, we do have to caveat that he did pick up the lead as a result of the drivers in front of him after qualifying at Daytona losing it early on, including a lap 1 incident for Robin Aston, who you do see parked up in the pit lane there, albeit of a distance. Hidden in the midst of the pit lane is Porsche 992, the number 25 driver. We'll see him a little bit later on. And we also saw difficulties for Robin Pownier, who got it wrong in his SimCoach Mercedes AMG Evo, and that was on lap number 8, a major spin. And then Andrew Montine took the lead, and he never looked back at Daytona. And well, Montine really putting together a driver consistency, as much as the pace we saw from him at the Saxon Ring, where he was able to bring home that second place, albeit not able to take a candle to the race winner in the end. But that's really where we sit with regards to all three of our championships and the stories in terms of who's leading. And some of you might be wondering, okay, that's all fair, and what else is there to play for? Well, keep in mind that in the Interclass, Craig Hewlett, the second place man in the championship at the moment, the Inters, well, I think he'll be looking into today the other Axis SimSport team member in the top two there. And of course, we do have the two sister teams of what is X and Y, if I remember correctly here, because I do know they also run a Z team in some series, and I'm sure Andre and the team are going to be laughing right now if I've got these wrong, after I corrected them earlier in the week with regards to the team names when they were talking about a new driver joining the team, and they'd given me the incorrect name. Oh goodness me, how we go full circles here. And well, it's all fun, I can promise you that, ladies and gentlemen. But alas, that brings us on to a very nice topic, new drivers on the grids today, because we do have 3 new faces. And well, keeping with the theme of Axis SimSport drivers, here is our new Axis SimSport X driver, and he's new to the grid at SimRacing International. It is Eduardo Royes, the Spaniard, as he makes his way down the hill through turn number 14, and he joins the pro class here in the number 119, and we're wishing the best of luck on his debut, and we look forward to seeing what Eduardo is going to be able to do in his car, given the fact that right now 12th in pro. Well, to be fair, everyone starts somewhere, and I suspect he's just getting himself familiar, and this is going to be a bit of a baptism race for him. You know, he'll need to get himself familiar with all the drivers who surround him, and it can feel a bit awkward when you first join a grid, particularly midway through the season, when some of the rivalries have been established all the way from the previous season, and also you're already starting to see the potential contenders line up together. But as Royce makes his way around, we wish him the best luck on his debut. And we also have another new face in the pro class, and here is your fellow new face. They're together on circuit, interestingly enough, so that's perfectly timed there. You couldn't make that one up. And this is none other than Maxim Philippard, and the Belgian driver right now making his way down towards turn number 5 in the gassed-up Motorsport Aston Martin V8 Evo Vantage. And we're definitely picking a solid car there, and a very sleek car at that, and a very stealthy one with the paint job. And I must say, that lovely black and green job there, that's giving me vibes of some liveries I've seen in previous years, both on the simulator and also in real life. The Aston Martin does such a lovely job there, particularly the way the livery runs around the angular headlights, and it really makes it look as though that's the car just waiting in the dark and waiting to pounce. But will we see Philippard pounce today? Well, he's currently the 5th fastest in the pro class, so perhaps he'll be able to, and we wish him the best luck on his debut. So we have 2 new pro drivers. We have no new inter drivers, but we do have a new driver in the elite class. But when I say a new driver, I mean a new to the grid driver, but not a new driver to the SimRacing International community, because it is none other than Justin Noel, who currently is out of the car, unfortunately, and is not in the pit lane. He's decided to take a bit of a breather and go to the shack behind the garages, and therefore I think he's decided just to take some time with 10 minutes left. But we will welcome Justin Earl formally onto the grid if we can later on in this qualifying session. But if not, he joins the grid, and he is one of our regulars, of course. He raced previously in the America's GT Challenge Championship in 2025, and he will be a privateer for the purposes of this season, and he's in the Ford Mustang. But as we get towards the very sharp end of this qualifying session now, well, what can we else do? Or what we can do for you is bring you an onboard lap with one of our drivers, as we do get ready to see who's going onto a lap. And in fact, I think we're going to be jumping on board with Martin Kenyon as he takes us around for a flying lap. So making his way down the start finish straight there in the Lamborghini Huracan Evo, getting ready to brake into turn 1. Looks to his left for his brake marker and brakes about 130 metres from corner apex down from 6th to 3rd gear. Now carry all the speed flat out through turn number 2 here, and over to left to turn number 3. Hard on the brakes to the 100 metre mark, down to 1st gear, nice and tight to the apex. Back on the throttle, bring the car to the right hand side to open up turn number 4, and now lift off the throttle slightly and then full throttle as you go over the rise to get the back end to lay down. And as he makes his way down towards turn number 5, gets ready to go onto the brakes here, nice and late as much as he dares, but it's a downhill braking zone, so he's got to brake about 150 metres from apex, down to 1st gear and back onto full throttle. Now heading up the rise in towards turn number 6. Unsighted over the rise here, but he'll be flat out all the way. And then Sunny hits you. There's turn number 7. A dab of the brakes there, get the weight forward, and now coming out the corner onto the brakes immediately for turn number 8. Gets a very nice and early approach there. Kenyon using the mid-engine rear-wheel drive nature of the Lamborghini to rotate as much as possible, but unfortunately invalidating the lap there as he made his way out of the corner, just ran slightly wide. And for Martin Kenyon, that is going to be a trip back to the pits there. You can see what he's going for, and I think he was on a very good lap to start with. He was on a personal best first sector. However, that small mistake there costing the time, and I think he's decided to reset to the pits to ask himself the question, okay, what can I do to iron that out? With small mistakes like that can really be the difference between you being on pole or alternatively you being, as Martin Kenyon finds himself in 5th place in the interclass. And here is Craig Hewlett, meanwhile, in his Porsche 992. I think we're going to pick up the slack with regards to the qualifying lap very shortly with him as he makes his way on around. So we jump back on board with our driver. This time we are inside a Porsche 992. It's a slightly different machine. You're not going to hear the scream of a V10 engine anymore. Instead, it's going to be a flat 6 from Porsche. So making his way uphill through turn number 9 and into the braking zone for turns 10 and 11. Braking all the way to the left-hand side in turn number 10 to set up 11. Lovely run from Hewlett there. You can see him really getting the position of the car spot on. Now flat out through turn number 12. Brings the car over to the right-hand side and onto the brakes. They're not using as much entry curb as some, but to be fair, I think he feels more comfortable perhaps running on the tarmac. And out of 13, down into turn number 14 as he makes his way gradually down now. Feed the throttle in little by little in second gear. Open the steering wheel and now full throttle. He blasts his way in towards Gout Bend, and he goes as late as possible to turn in as it's a completely blind corner. You cannot see the corner until you go over the rise. You've got to be full throttle commitment at that point of nailed your line. And for Craig Hewlett, that completes our slightly elongated tour of the Portimão Grand Prix circuit. And Hewlett across the line there does not improve, but he makes his way over to the pit wall, and I think he'll be happy with the fact that currently he sits in second of what is the interclass. Andrew Montine only the faster driver between the two, and well, the gap between the two of them at the moment is shy of 2 tenths, but those 2 tenths can be made or lost quite quickly. But in terms of surprises, perhaps further down the order, well, one of the biggest surprises is the fact we have both Javi Sierra and also Nuno Vinagre. They're down in 32nd and 33rd, and they have not been able to get to grips with this qualifying session as much as perhaps they would like. Now, your lowest qualifying elite drivers at this time, and in the pro class, Rob Windsor down in 37th place, out of our 46 entrants. Things are definitely not clicking together for him. Meanwhile, Neville Harris, he makes his way onwards, and Harris has yet to actually get a lap on the board. This is his first lap he's just gone on to, so he's leaving it late in the day. But to be fair, some drivers do that, and I think the thought process is, yes, they have 45 minutes to try and get a good qualifying lap together, which is our new qualifying format for this season. We've gone from the 10-minute closed shootout style qualifying session now into a more open one for this season, just to open things up and also to align with our wider qualifying sessions across the board here at SimRacing International. But understandably, Neville Harrison, number 55, he's decided he wants to do things within what is 5 to 10 minutes, and also not every driver can make it to the whole 45-minute qualifying session, depending on work and personal arrangements. But that's the great thing as well, it does give drivers a lot more time to qualify, and those who need the extra practice, it also gives them plenty of time, albeit practicing qualifying. That does sound as though it's a little bit controversial, but they do have to keep in mind therefore that they do have drivers around them who are on flying laps, but that's all part of the story and part and parcel here at SimRacing International. That's why we have the stewarding system, and impediments on qualifying laps, they are scrutinised just as much as race incidents. But with 5 minutes left, and Heavy Harris right now making his way in towards the final quarter. Well, this is definitely looking to be a decent start to his qualifying session. And what's his first lap going to be? Picks up a bit of a distance off the old Duty Cars Ford Mustang there as well. As they come to the timeline, he follows down Sharples on through, and for Harris, he goes 46. Well, it's a 45.1, so therefore he is currently half a second off of Thomas Barjuk, who is your next driver, 45th. But Harris now will start to build up the pace there as he hops his way over the apex curve of turn number 1. That goes up into the air, and that's not what you want to do there. That's going to bring the suspension crashing on down, and Harris will have a compromise line now through 2 and into 3, and that may just cost him the time to improve. But meanwhile, speaking of late improvements, Henrik Strand currently parked up there, and I believe that is a park up at turn number 6 into 7. Yes, it is. So he's decided enough's enough there, and he's just waiting. He's going to be careful with that, of course. He will be triggering a local yellow, but I think he's well out of the way that nobody has to worry about it. But he's on your pole lap of 40.617, as Andrea Miato, meanwhile, makes his way around for another fly here in the Aston Martin. And, well, can our championship leader at this time find a way to strike back? Let's find out as we jump aboard. He's making his way down the start-finish straight here. The gentle bass gripping roar here of the Aston Martin really coming to life as he makes his way in towards turn number 1, and as he does, chucks the car into the corner, dropping 3 gears as quick as that. It's literally so quick, blink and you miss it. In towards turn number 3 comes, onto the brakes, and right now down to first, as he comes all the way down to an apex speed of 50 miles an hour. Now over to the right immediately, see the rotation here that Miato has in this car, the confidence as well, and as he bows his way out of the corner, we briefly lose him, then he reappears, and as he does so, we'll down into the brakes at turn number 5, and as he comes all the way down to first gear, all the way to an apex speed of 47 miles an hour, he exits but gets it rolled there. The car just snatches away at him, and unfortunately for Andrea Miato, that's the tow back to the pits, and that might be it for his chances to move up from 4th place in this qualifying session. We're going to be a 1-2-3 for Ford, albeit 3 different teams line up in the top 3 spots, with Beta Strand ahead of Miracle Group M Academies, Stofco, and then it will be Saunders for Altitude Reb Esports at the moment. And Pietro Antonio Pasquarelli right now trying to move his Lamborghini a little bit further up the running order. As for the Pro class, have there been any recent changes? Well, Harry Shaw, he's holding on to 4th in the Pros at the moment. He has improved slightly, but he is still the best part of a 10th off of this man, of Hendrik Zilka, but he has been able to put what has been half a 10th between himself and Maximin Philippau. And meanwhile, we do have Ross Young. He's still trying to find a bit more time in the Dexterous Motorsports Porsche 992. It does seem as though time is falling out of the hands of a few drivers here. Nobody's really finding any improvements anymore. But we come to an Audi that's roaring its way back out the pit lane. Here goes Max Wheeler, and I had the opportunity to catch up with Max in the build-up to today, and well, he had overheard on a couple of the broadcasts that I've recently provided for SimRacing International, and the questions I had with regards to the family, because you do have 3 members of the Freewheeler Racing team, and well, I get the feeling that might be part of the story why they're called Freewheeler Racing, because they have 3 family members on the grid. And well, if you're wondering how they all link up together, so Max Wheeler and Tom Wheeler, they are brothers. Meanwhile, Harvey Wheeler, who you see out on the circuit, is Max's son. And would you believe it when I told you that Harvey Wheeler is only 14 years old? That's absolutely incredible to think, and I don't believe Harvey's out there on the circuit at the moment. But here's the brother of Tom. And well, as Tom gets it a bit wrong there coming out of turn number 4, that's what can happen on cold tyres or just run too wide. He's going to tow to the pits immediately. But the fact the Wheeler family is all out here looking to have a good old time. And well, the fact that Harvey is only, well, in fact, Harvey is Tom's son. Let me get that corrected, ladies and gents. I do apologise there. He's not Max's son. In fact, I'm just going to double check my extra set of notes here in case I've got this wrong. And no, I was right in the first place that Harvey is Max's son, not Tom's son, so I've written that down incorrectly. I'm going to get it right eventually, I promise you, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, goodness me, family trees and everything here. Indeed, this could be an episode of Ancestry right now. So, just to play that back, Max is the father of none other than Harvey, and you have Tom, who is the brother of Max, and we're all out here to give it their all as I make a complete ham sandwich of that. But good to see the family out here. I can only imagine what I was doing at 14 years old. It's crazy to think I'm going to be turning 33 later this week, or, well, what is going to be a day to remember, because it will be, of course, the next round of the Thursday GT3 series. I'll be celebrating my 33rd birthday. The years have flown on by, but I can't regret that. But enough reminiscing on my end. Indeed, age is just a number for so many of our drivers here, and that's why you do have the old dudes in cars outfit out there. They try to prove the fact that age is just a number, and it is a bunch of old dudes in the machines. Well, meanwhile, we look to Alexander Wingmark, who I've got no idea what his age is. Hopefully it's not his door number, because if he was 2 years old here, I think we would be looking at the Messiah of motorsport. But as he makes his way out, well, right now he's currently 39th or 11th in the interclass. But to be fair to Alexander, he has normally qualified quite low in the season standings, but he's normally come through the field quite comfortably over the race distance. And we look forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do in that Porsche 992. But qualifying has only 10 seconds left in it, and right now, if our drivers haven't got a lap together, they will need to in the overtime that's available, as we look to Grant Miller, as the Phoenix Racing driver makes his way up the hill there. A little bit of a twitchy McLaren. Doesn't look to be too happy, the car, and I wonder whether he's just trying to iron out some of the kinks of the car at the moment. It is a very direction change sensitive car, the McLaren, which is one of its strengths, but also one of its weaknesses. At medium to high speed, it is a car that loves direction change. At lower speeds, it becomes very sensitive on the apexes. And that's why you're seeing, I think, Miller just feeling the car, wanting to step a little bit wide as he came out of turn number 8, but he brings it back together or thereabouts. And, well, he's going to be starting in 4th place in the interclass. He's done well in this session, has Miller. And we look forward to seeing whether he can contest the podium once again, because he definitely has earned the right to over the first 2 rounds, no doubt about it. As Miller makes his way through the final corner and up towards what will be the time in line, well, the number 80 driver here heading on through, and as he does so, well, he completes his final qualifying lap. It won't be an improvement. Steve Hobbs is to come around in the SimCoach Ferrari 296. And your number 116 driver here making his way gently down the hill. But as he does so, it's 6-cylinder machinery with the turbo bolted onto it. And of course, there is a bit of a story as to why we see so many of the modern GT3 machines move to 6-cylinder engines. But we can tell you more about that another time because we have come to the end of this qualifying session. In fact, we might be able to tell you a bit about it during the interluding 5-minute warm-up session. Because it is definitely an interesting story how Honda or Acura have actually triggered that off. And indeed, you could say they triggered it off all the way back in 2015 with their first generation Acura NSX GT3 machine. But as Hobbs makes his way into the pits, well, that is going to be it for qualifying because the only other driver out there right now is the man on overall and elite pole. It is none other than Henrik Riestrand who comes on through, and well, he's got the job done, ladies and gentlemen, by 3 attempts by looks of things, and he will take that front row ahead of Jakob Stofko with Rhys Saunders and Andrea Miato on row number 2. As for the pro pole, it goes to Kyle Roy. He's back on top form. He'll take 10th overall, first of the class ahead of Matthew Croft, who will be 12th, and second of the pros just ahead of Hendrik Zilka. And then in the interclass, starting 16th, it is going to be Andrew Montaigne, who takes interpole by 2 tenths in the end over Craig Hewlett, who'll be the second place starter in 21st, and then Robin Aston and Grant Miller will be 3rd and 4th on row number 12 together. So qualifying is at a close, and now we just wait for our drivers to be required to come back into the pit lane, and as they do, well, then we have the 5-minute breather before we do go to the grid for what will be 60 minutes of racing action. And so as we transition into the final warm-up session, 5 minutes gradually counts on down. And for our drivers now, of course, this is a prime opportunity, if they haven't taken the chance already, to think about essentially getting themselves a little bit of a comfort break, alternatively just seeing if they can make some final tweaks to the setup of the car. Also, given the fact that many of our drivers will bring qualifying setups and also race setups, it's time to make sure the right fuel's in the car and they are using the right setup in the race. Now, what could be the difference between the two setups, I hear you ask? In the fact that surely it's the same car and they're driving on the same circuit and the conditions won't have evolved too much. Well, it's the small intricate things. In qualifying, normally the focus is on only 1 or 2 laps on a single set of tyres. So therefore, you put a lot less fuel in the car by comparison because fuel is mass. And with all that mass comes extra weight. And the idea is you want the lightest possible car in order to attack the circuit for what will be 1 to 2 laps. That's one thought process. Secondly, the fact that because you're only doing 1 to 2 laps, you'll normally go with a setup that is less considerate of the tyres, whereby overheating the tyres is a concern in the race. Not necessarily so in qualifying if you're only doing your outlap plus 1 to 2 laps, as that's the car going around right in front there. There's a lot of brakes gone immediately, and that is the Ford Mustang of none other than, I do believe, what was there? Well, it's towed its way back to the pits. That was Henrik Riestrand, who got it wrong coming out of turn number 4. And I suspect we're going to see quite a few of those moments in the race, particularly early on. But as we were saying there, the fact that with the setup, you'll normally put a setup together which is less considerate of the tyres and essentially heats them up very quickly in order to be able to do those 1 or 2 laps. Then after that, you come into the pits. Lastly, you may go for a setup whereby it makes the car less stable by comparison in race conditions. So you'll raise the rear ride height a little bit more and lower the front perhaps. Alternatively, you may actually make the roll bars more aggressive, whereby you increase the amount of anti-roll bar at the rear versus decrease it at the front, and that will make the car want to slide more on the rear end and come round corners quicker. In the race, that might be fine for a couple of laps, but when you're doing 60 minutes of racing around the Portimão circuit, you might actually want to change the roll bar distribution or even some of the suspension settings to make the car easier to drive. You will lose a bit of 1-lap pace, but if you gain confidence in the car and know that for the whole 60 minutes, or what is going to be the best part of approximately 38 laps or so, that you don't have to worry about the rear end coming up loose unless you've pushed a bit too hard yourself, then you can feel a lot more confident in the car. So that's why drivers do have this window to change the setup on the car and make sure they're ready to go. Because of course, going straight from qualifying to the grid, well, it does sometimes leave drivers in a little bit of what can be a challenge, particularly if it's only a 2-minute gridding procedure, as we have seen in previous seasons. And that's why the warm-up sessions have been brought in. As Nathan Anstis makes his way down, the UKSimRacing Ministry driver. We have the wonderful profile photo of them. We have many a profile photo, and a huge thank you to all our drivers who are able to submit their profile photos in time, and also to the SimRacing International administration for being able to get those photos all together for our wonderful broadcast and team. It's so great to see so many of our drivers. And no, before you do ask with regards to the racing overalls, most of our drivers, professional racing drivers, not quite. However, they have, we're going to be completely transparent, used AI in combination with their own personal profile photos to put a set of racing overalls on. I can tell you you one thing, ladies and gentlemen. I know there's a lot of controversy and dislike for AI, but when it's used for something like this, I can't help but smile, because it is one of the greater, more ethical uses of AI that I've definitely seen in the last couple of years. But talking about whether using AI is ethically right or wrong, right now I can definitely tell you one thing, that whilst he makes his way up the hill there, well, some may say that it looks like it's a few paint cans that have gone a bit wrong with regards to delivery there at Thomas Barjuk, but I say that is a very colourful Ferrari there, and I can't question the fact that it definitely does stand out for all the right reasons. And well, they do say the bodywork of a car is the canvas, and Barjuk demonstrating that sometimes paint everyone that canvas can make the car look absolutely lovely. The number 50 driver ready to go racing in the Interclass, no doubt about it. He comes on down the hill there. Well, we were going to say about the switch to 6 cylinders for so many modern GT3 cars. The quick summary of it is, whilst we've got a minute to go, when we head to the grid, is that 6-cylinder engines are normally seen more efficient, both for the road car the GT3 is based on. Keep in mind, of course, the GT3s have to be based on a production road car, including the Ferrari 296 GT, for example, alternatively the Porsche 992, albeit this is 6 cylinders, but it's a flat 6 with 4 litres at displacement. Not quite the same in terms of the engines. We're talking about the 6 cylinders that we've seen with turbos implemented in the likes of the BMW M4, alternatively the Ferrari 296 or the Acura NSX Evo. But the story, as well, as we briefly lose our time in tower and it rematerialises, it just decides there to refresh itself, is the fact that it has been seen that the 6-cylinder engine with a turbo is the most efficient setup, and also perhaps a bit of a less expensive setup, albeit there's nothing that can quite beat the immature roar of a V8, or should we say the more mature roar in a way, because the one thing that always stands the test of time is the fact of wonderful V8 engine, and well, we've got the old Disney Cars Amnesia machine of Casper Rotner to demonstrate that. But he makes his way on down the hill. Well, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the warm-up is complete. It's time to make our way to the grid for round number 3 of the Sunday GT3 Championship Season 17 at UKSimRacing, brought to you by SimRacing International. And so onto the grid our drivers go, and as they do, this is how they'll line up for our third round of the championship. It is Henrik Riestrand who takes pole position for Beta Frost, looking to make amends for what happened at Daytona, and he'll be joined on the front row of the grid by Jakob Stofko from the Group M Esports. It's of all Ford Mustang front row, and on row number 2 we have a Ford Mustang Reece Saunders for Altitude Fred Esports, but you finally seen a different car in the form of the Aston Martin V8 Vantage Evo of none other than Andrea Miato. The Tartan Restec driver from Italy will then be followed up by the Scotsman of Hayden Miller, with the Phoenix Racing driver there looking to go forward in his Corvette, ahead of none other than William Arneson for Beta Frost, who qualifies there in his Mercedes AMG Evo in 6th place. The theme of elite drives continues, with row number 4 being occupied by Pietro Antonio Pasquarello for Tartan Restec, head of DCW Racing's Richard Simlaw, your defending champion. Harvey Wheeler completes a run of elite drivers to 9th place there for Freewheeler Racing by Phoenix, and then Kyle Roy will begin his day on pole position for Miracle Group M Academy in 10th place. Outside the top 10, starting in 11th, it's Justin Noel on his debut round today. Welcome to Justin Noel to the UK SimRacing grid. We look forward to seeing what he can do from best to rest position in 11th. And Matthew Croft, who begins his day second of the pros, in 12th place there, the Pro Championship leader for Axis SimSport Z. We then have Old Dudes in Cars Amnesia's Hendrik Zilka, who starts just behind him, but ahead of none other than Salvatore Ferradino, who starts 14th for Tartan Restec. Then it's going to be a Pro and an Inter, because we have Harry Shaw, full for the Pro, starting 15th for Iron Apex Esports, and he'll be joined on that 8th row of the grid by Andre Montine for Axis SimSport Z, and then it's going to be behind them, debutant of Maxime Philippard, the gassed up Motorsport driver, starting 17th ahead of Darren Sharples for Midlife Crisis of the Old Dudes in Cars divisions. We then do have Ross Young starting in 19th for DXT Motorsports, ahead of Casper Brotner for Old Dudes in Cars Amnesia, and we can't forget about him, nor can we forget about who starts 21st, because it's Axis SimSport Y's Craig Hewlett, who starts second of your Inter drivers. He's in the company of Max Wheeler in his Audi R8 Evo Mark II for Freewheeler Racing by Phoenix, and then we do have Robin Aston starting 23rd for GPX SimSport Onyx, ahead of Phoenix Racing's Grant Miller, and then we are going to have on row number 13 Martin Kenyon for DXT Motorsports, and well, he'll be looking to try and make quick progress from there, otherwise he might have Ashley Brooks for close company immediately from Axis SimSport Z. We'll then have 27th on the grid, Nathan Anstis for UK SimRacing Manish, ahead of Sim Coach's Robin Pownier, and then we do have behind him his teammate of Steve Hobbs, with 30th being rounded off there by none other than what is the machinery of Nim Mayer, or Nine Mayer I should say, getting his name correct for Tartan Restec. Outside that top 30, on 31st, it's going to be debutant for Axis SimSport Y of Eduardo Reyes, the Spaniard being followed up there by none other than Javi Sierra, and also struggling in the elite class it would seem Nuno Viagra, who starts in at 33rd. 34th goes the way of Shane Cotton for Phoenix Racing, and then we do have behind them Richard Jones for Slow and Steady Racing, and also there Nick Parks. The priority being followed up by UKSimRacing finishes Rob Windsor, who will be hoping to make progress there in the Pro class, given how poor his qualifying session seems to have gone. He's going to be in the company there of Tom Wheeler for Freewheeler Racing by Phoenix, and completing your top 40 is going to be Alexander Vingmark for Beta Frost, and the priority of Gilles Lequy. From the Canadian driver, and we do say hello to his dad as well if he's tuned in today, and I hope he's doing well because he does love these broadcasts of what I hear. We then do come to what is row number 21, and we will have none other than what will be there. And David Young from South Africa for Logistical Nightmare Racing ahead of the privateer of Harris, that being Neville Harris there. He managed to improve later on in qualifying. Meanwhile, Andrew Fellows did not, who starts 43rd for GPEX Simsport Xenon. And then we do have Slow and Steady Racing's Alex Brown, 44th, head to the final row of the grid. And there's two drivers there. And it is James Connolly, who starts 45th for UKSimRacing Herbert. Channeling his another Johnny Herbert. And behind him, starting 46th for 46 cars, it is Thomas Bargett, the privateer. With that, ladies and gentlemen, that is a rundown of the field. This formation lap's almost at the close, and as they all make their way into the last couple of quarters, well, there's only one thing it leaves us to do. It leaves us to have this man, Henrik Riestrand, to take our drivers double file formation up towards Gout Bend, and he'll dictate the pace all the way to the start-finish line. But as they come through, keep in mind, sunny skies here today have a little bit of cloud, the conditions are settled, everybody is absolutely set to go racing with track temperature 37 degrees centigrade. It is hot, it is pleasant, and that makes it perfect for us to go racing in round number 3 of the championship. But it's over to Riestrand to take us away for what is going to be 60 minutes of intense racing action. And it's lights out, and away we go here for what is another round of racing in the Sunday GT3 Championship. Green flag goes, and as the field fans out there, they're 6 wide in the mid-pack already as they come roaring down into the opening corner. And all these drivers right now make their way through, and well, it's going to be 2, 3 wide there as they all come through. Cargo sideways. That's William Arneson being ejected. That's also Richard Simnell going very sideways. Simnell's going to fall all the way down to the back of the order. So is Arneson, who tries to get it back together, but as all the drivers come to the brakes here, a couple going deep. That includes Kyle Roy. They're going out wide in the Group MM machine. And meanwhile, up the hill, oh, goodness me, Andrew Mateen being collected there. Your lead with the Interclass goes side by side with Dan Sharples, who's been turned around, and we'll car in the middle of the road. Everyone fans out brilliantly there. They all avoid. That's Matthew Croft. Croft has got all sorts of wrong over returner before. I think he's been nudged around a little bit, and for Croft right now, well, I can tell you one thing, his championship lead is definitely going to be under threat come the end of today. But meanwhile, more fighting to come as we look at William Arneson immediately on a recovery drive here, trying to pick his way on through. And well, the karting driver turned GT3 simulator driver right now goes around the outside of both Ross Young and Darren Sharples. Sharples still fighting here with Young as they make the way up the rise. And right now, Sharples switches one way, then the other. And Young trying to hold him off as they make the way down the hill. My goodness, what a crazy open lap this has been. I suspect there's going to be plenty more of this before it's all said and done. But heading up the rise right now, Sharples close. And meanwhile, Casper Rotner, his teammate in the elite class there, is coming up behind. And I wonder if they're on the radio right now talking about how they negotiate this or letting themselves settle down a little bit. I think it's going to be the latter before the former, but we'll see what comes. Javi Sierra, he's had a decent start in the privateer BMW M4, and well, right now the 207 driver there, he's moved up some great ground. He's already gained 3 places, although Richard Jones is going to try and take one back. They're going around the outside of the hairpin. Jones for Slow and Steady Racing there will definitely not hold him back right now, and looking to chase down Tom Wheeler and Robin Powney in front of him, as Wheeler and what is Powney there now looking to go side by side coming out the final quarter. In the battle of the V8s, it's going to be Powney on that outside line who's going to feel a lot more comfortable. But after one lap, well, our leaders coming towards turn of 1, and Henrik Strand right now under huge pressure from Jakub Stofko. Stofko is all over the back of him coming in towards turn number 3 for the second time of asking. My goodness, Stofko right now, he's absolutely on a mission here. We haven't quite seen the pace from him like this since the Saxon Ring 2 rounds to go. Meanwhile, Reece Saunders, he's really creating a bit of a cork in the proverbial bottle for the rest of the places as they make their way through turn number 4. But every driver right now trying to make some early progress as we do see some changes in the mid-pack. Nathan Anstis has just found his way ahead of Hendrik Zilka coming down to turn number 1. But look at that behind Andrew Mateen. Missing the front bumper, but right now the Axis is what's their driver. He's not giving in. It does remind me of the Connor Bros car. That's the Saxon Ring, which is missing the front bumper and calls the mother of all trains, but did incredibly well to hold on for the whole race. But as he comes on down right now, Mateen with those wounds, well, we definitely think, what could he do? As Richard Jones suddenly finds a Mercedes on the inside, and Robin Powney there comes from very far back. That included 2 first-class stamps and a recorded delivery, and in the end he's recorded it well because Brownie is going to get ahead here coming in towards turn number 7. What a lovely move from Robin Powney up to 4th place, head of Jones. Jones, but I think Jones will be happy to the fact he's with the Sim Coach driver. As meanwhile, a bit of change going on as Richard Simnor, we dropped all the way down the running order, and I believe Simnor dropped to 45th as a result of that incident on the opening lap, and he's been on a recovery drive ever since. He's already back to 33rd place. So Simnor right now on a bit of a mission to recover. He's going to pick up another place here ahead of Rob Windsor as they come through Portimão Bend, and his next target will be Nuno Vinagre, who will be one of his elite rivals who he looks for here coming in towards turn number 13. Oh, goodness me, careful, that's very sideways there for Richard Simnor, and Simnor almost losing it as he makes his way on through, but not quite so, as it does seem as though our overlay there may have just glitched visually, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to give it a bit of a refresh, and hopefully it does come back to us in short order. We do apologise for that. It does seem to have just caught itself out, but these things happen, of course, so we keep an eye on all the racing that's happening. But right now, as all drives come along here, still more fighting to come, no doubt about it. Plenty of racing action occurring here at what is the Portimão circuit. I think there's more to come before all is said and done. But looking to Pietro Antonio Pescarello, who's gone wide, and well, he's gone very wide as well, so the fact he's got around there at turn number 1, and right now I'm not quite sure what's happened to him, but we'll hopefully see him get things back together sooner rather than later. But it has gone so very wrong there for him, and understandably I think he's been a bit frustrated with that one as he tucks back in and rejoins the racing just ahead of Javi Sierra. And as our overlay starts to make its way back onto the screen, hopefully we'll get it back soon. We do apologise for that, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes technical issues do blight us. Well, meanwhile, there's been somebody gone around there. Is that Andrea Miato? That's Miato who's got around. Miato's had it go very wrong. And, well, he now brings things back together. Not quite sure what's happened to him, but he's definitely had things go backwards rather than forwards. Albeit, Max Wheeler right now picks up the places in the absence of what's the difficulties there for his Italian rival. And I think Wheeler won't be too upset about that as he now makes his way onwards just that little bit further. We'll see what's to come between them as our drivers all continue to scoot the way around. Well, right now we are getting our timing back. There we go. Our overlay has finally found its way back onto the screen. We do apologise for that, ladies and gents. We're not quite sure what's happened there, but of course we always have a plan B in the background, and plan B has been executed successfully. But meanwhile, will Harvey Wheeler here have a plan B as he makes his way through turn number 15? He has got Maximir Philippard right behind him right now, and Philippard has taken the lead of the pro class and everything that's happened, and Kyle Roy has lost out to him. We're going to get a few replays here of what's happened over what has been the last couple of laps, for the simple reason there's been a lot of changes. First, Philippard right now are really going all in on this, and I suspect he managed to pick up the places on the opening lap where Kyle Roy was slightly elbowed out at turn number 3. But without further ado, as they all settle down for now, Grant Miller, of course, a bit further back, has moved up into second in the Interclass, it should be reported, so he's a happy start from 4th to 2nd as quick as that. Andrew Montine really losing out by comparison, and Robin Aston has taken the lead of that Interclass off Canberra, and I think aided there by what happened to Montine. But without further ado, we are going to take a look back in time and take a look at some of those big moments from the opening couple of laps. And so it's back in time we go, and as we do, we get to see what exactly happened for so many drivers here as part of the race start, and we are going to focus initially on what was Kyle Roy here as he made his way away. So making his way down towards turn number 1. Well, the whole field coming through. He picked the outside there. Smart place to go. But look at Philippard on the inside there, diving immediately. And Philippard makes his way in. We saw it go wrong for what was Arneson. And contact there, I believe, between Saunders and Simnor sent Simnor off to the side. And Roy just been elbowed out there by Pasquarello. And that is how the places got swapped in the end. Aston Martin already gone through. And it was a big pinch there as Roy pinched probably of another car to essentially boxing down Sharples. And then Montine had already taken the damage. That sent him around, and so for Matthew Croft. So that explains what happened between them. Let's take another look back at what exactly happened, and in fact I think what we might be able to do is see it from what was a bit more of a Matthew Croft's perspective here as he made his way through the corner, and as he did make his way up the hill, this was Matthew Croft. And, well, this was on the formation lap. We do apologise for that. We seem to have gone a bit too far back in time, but can we get a little bit further forward in time is the question, and the answer is yes, we can. This was Matthew Croft getting underway, and as he did so, many of the drivers got underway here. What exactly happened to Croft? The answer was he made his way on down. Well, the drivers made the way in towards the opening bend here on the green flag, and Croft found himself right in the thick of the 4 wide. That was Philippard up the inside of Croft immediately, really squeezing on through so quickly. And well, we lost Arneson with a bit of contact, I think. And then Croft at this point, I think he'd be grateful, dives into a space that's wide open. What he's going to find here is very quickly, he's going to get boxed in after contact with Harry Shaw. Shaw in the end made to go to the grass, but escapes it all. And then another pinch here with Roy slightly has to back out, but Croft there already missing a bit of rear wing, and Sonny has to be in the middle of the road. So disastrous start for Croft. Meanwhile, what exactly happened to some of the other drivers? Well, we had it all go wrong for Richard Simnor. This was a look at Andrew Montine's on board. So this was Montine making his way in towards turn number 3. It comes on through the corner, has to go out to the wide. A lot happening in front of him. Just stays safe, and in the end, just giving a bolt to the grass there. And, well, for Montine, that would have been frustrating, but understandably, I think he would have been thinking to himself, there's nothing else I could have really done. We had this for Justin Noel on lap number 2. And this went a bit wrong for Noel down in towards the opening bend. It was 3 wide between himself, Shaw and Roy. 3 does not normally go into 1, and that's just been proven there as contact between all 3 of them. No, on the outside, they were thinking as though his rivals didn't give him enough space to operate, and I think they'd all argue they all deserved a little bit more, respectively. But Noel, the one who came off the worst of the group. And then we had this for Pietro Antonio Pasquarello on lap number 3. Now, this was coming down in towards turns 1 and 2. We saw him parked up. We didn't see the outcome which led to it. And, well, as he made his way in, just lost it with his own rear volition there. And that was the rear of the car unsettling itself. Understandable, it can happen. And then we had this for his teammate Miato only moments later. This was down towards the hairpin at turn number 5. Made his way onto the brakes here. And as he did, contact with Shaw, sent him round. Shaw tried to back off and in the end was biffed forward. So there's no real way to go there other than around for Miato. A bit of a frustrating one as we make our way back to your live racing pitch, ladies and gentlemen, because what a start to the race it has been. And well, as we come on back, still plenty of time to be had in this race, no doubt about it. And I'll tell you one thing right now, the racing action's so epic here today that it's broken the overlay already. And well, we've got everything fixed. I can assure you of that, at least for now. If it breaks again, we'll do what we can. But meanwhile, we come back to all the racing. And well, what's happened since then? Well, in terms of changes, well, Strand is still ahead of Stoffel at the very front of the field, with Miller and Saunders and Harvey Wheeler still giving chase. But Maximilian Philippard right now is the man to watch, it would seem, as the Guest Up Motorsport driver is making progress very quickly indeed. And the Belgian driver right now on an absolute mission. Further back, Max Wheeler here for Free Wheeler Racing by Phoenix, trying to make a move on Ashley Brooks. That's not going to come straight forward to him. He goes to the switchback instead. And as he makes his way on through the corner, coming down through turn number 14. Right now, the Free Wheeler Racing by Phoenix driver here looking for the switchback. Lovely bit of manoeuvring. Is he going to be able to make this work, however? And the answer is not quite. We jump on board the front bumper here. Wheeler has to back off for a brief moment. As he comes on down, understandably, his mission is going to be able to try and get a little bit closer if he can. As he makes his way down that start-finish straight, and well, in the draft, it's not going to be enough, as that Mercedes is just able to charge away. But still, plenty of momentum to come for him, no doubt about it, and he'll be hoping there's a bit more before this race is all said and done. And from him, we look a little bit further back to Justin Noel. Well, right now, the privateer, he's carried on as he battles there with Nathan Anstis, who goes a bit deep. So he'll take that place off of Anstis quite comfortably. I don't think he'll be too upset about that. Why Anstis either, given the fact there are 2 different classes. From there, we look even further down the order and in the interclasses where it's all happening at the moment as we look to Martin Kenyon, the DXT Motorsports driver here, coming up towards that braking zone. And well, for Kenyon, it's going to be 2 wide here versus Grant Miller. They fight hard as we look to those class standings. Going to get ahead of Miller, and Miller in fact has dropped down the order since we last looked. He was running quite happily in second place. There seems to have been a bit of an incident we haven't quite caught on camera, and I don't think we're going to be able to get a replay of, but Miller has fallen back. And behind, Vingmart versus Young, they're still fighting these 2 as well. It's absolutely battles aplenty everywhere you look at the moment, and well, we can't complain at that, ladies and gentlemen, because I can tell you one thing right now, all these drivers are absolutely giving it their all, and it is incredible to see. There's going to be even more to see before this is all said and done. You can count on that. And these drivers making their way through all these quarters right now. And Vingmar in the number 2 for Beta Frost. Understandably, he's still thinking a bit more about what lies up the road and those places that can be made. That braking zone he goes no way through at the moment. As Ron Powney will feel the same. Powney heading onwards here, and I think for Powney this is going to be all about just simply staying in the draft until it's not. When he dives up the inside there, he goes all in for it, and he does make a bit of the magic happen there as these drivers right now come down in towards turn number 14, and as they do, well, Powney here still trying to find that move, but funny enough, Vingmart there says to him, well, you can try it, but on that line, it's not going to be easy for you. And the SimCoach driver there still 2 wide as they make their way over the crest, and Powney right now using his knowledge and experience as much as possible in that Mercedes, and I think he is going to blast his way on past as they make their way down the start finish straight. And well, here comes a move from Hendrik Zilka looking behind, and Zilka's going to switch the inside here as they get ready to go onto the brakes. The old Dudesy Cars Amnesia driver Wheeler. Well, he looks up the inside, goes onto the brakes, and in the end, well, Vingmark's going to be made to go a little bit wide. Too wide, they come through turns 2 into 3, and we'll get the move done. And Vingmark will now be a little bit frustrated at the fact that he can't go battling with the man in front of him for the simple reason that he has had a pro in to weave his way in between the two. But sometimes that's the way it does go. When Ron Windsor also trying to catch up when he can. Well, right now, Zilka is just going to be thinking to himself, okay, that's one done. Now I've got plenty more to do before this race is said and done. We'll see what he's going to be able to do from there. But meanwhile, coming back towards the front of the field, here is Harvey Wheeler, the three-wheeler racing by Phoenix driver, who's fallen away a little bit from the top 4 of the elite class. However, as the opening 15 minutes of this race gradually grind themselves to a conclusion, well, right now he's still got company in the form of Philip R, the 2 Aston Martin drivers together, and Kyle Roy is trying to catch up to this as quickly as he can. And understandably, the Miracle Group M Academy driver will be thinking to himself, right, it hasn't quite gone right initially, but I can definitely come back when I can, as he makes his way onwards. And going down towards turn number 1 right now. Well, Roy here's just got to keep himself together because he knows he's quick enough to be on pole. He knows he can win this race on pace. But, of course, with the damage he picked up on the opening lap, it might just be upsetting the attitude of the car a little bit. As meanwhile, at the head of the interclass is Robin Aston for GPX Simsport on it, as he heads in towards turn number 1. Well, right now, ahead of Max Wheeler, he goes, as Justin Noel queues up behind, and these 3 drivers all together. And we do get the onboard with Noel as he makes his way into that braking zone. And through the right-hander he comes, and the American driver here weaving around behind, but understandably this is all part of the parcel and the ploy to keep moving forward as he makes his way onwards in that draft. And well, these 2 battling for 9th place in the elite class here, and both drivers, they've definitely had their fair share of bruises and bumps at the start of this race, and 2 very different cars. The Audi makes up all its speed in the corners, meanwhile Noel's Mustang makes all the speed on the straights and into those braking zones where he can, albeit very heavy brakes in this Ford Mustang for a very heavy car as well, and it means that this car does have some of the longer braking distances of the GT3 machines on the grid. Right now, not able to find a move there in towards turn number 8. He's going to wait just a little bit longer. As I'm hearing in my ear, we've had a bit of drama for Matthew Croft after what went wrong for him on the opening couple of laps. So Croft, it just seems to be going backwards rather than forwards. And we'll get a replay of that when we can. And meanwhile, speaking of newcomers, well, here is Eduardo Royes and the X-Systems Sport Y driver making his way around. As we just briefly have Andrea Miato's car say hello from the inferior ether. Well, to come in towards turn number 13. Royes has got a bit of damage on the front of that McLaren. Also, the front bumper there has been slightly compacted, most likely due to a concertina effect shunt that he's had to make to another car. Not intentionally, mind you, just simply where everyone has caught each other out. As he tucks into the draft here right now of Miato, he'll be hoping that they can push each other along just a little bit as they make the way towards the end of this lap. And the sun shines bright here, and that track temperature is only getting hotter. But down they come, and meanwhile, down the straight, Justin Noel here looking to move on Wheeler. We were wondering when that Ford Mustang might be able to show its straight line speed, and it does. Max Wheeler in the end doesn't fight it too hard and lets the swap for 9th place in the elite class happen. But understandably, I think this is more with the premise of let's work together and try to catch up to Casper Brotner, who is only 2 seconds up the road. We'll see what's going to happen there, because of course, Brotnan right now, he's trying to make some progress with Darren Sharples and Ashley Brooks in his close company. As we look back to your overall standings now, everybody glues together in this running order, but right now at least, well, the racing has settled down to a degree, but I think this is really the calm before the storm. Now, Harry Shaw here, your 3rd place runner in the Pro class right now, enjoying himself at Iron Apex Esports, no doubt about it, as he makes his way over the rise, chasing after Salvatore Ferrandino. But behind him, here's a driver who we haven't really talked about. It's Tartan Restec's name Mayer, and the Swiss drivers had an absolutely brilliant run since the start of the race. He's gained 7 places in the Pro class. He started 11th in class and what was none other than 30th overall. He is currently 11th in this race. All the ground he has made since the start, of course you could say a lot of it has been aided by the altercations that have happened to other drivers, but to be fair, you've still got to pick your way through the chaos. So Mayer's had a very solid start to this race, and well, we were wondering where he'd gone, because we did see his Aston Martin in some of the replay pictures a lot further up the order, and what confirms our suspicions, which is he has been one of the biggest beneficiaries of the start of the race and what played out. But of course, sometimes it works out for some and doesn't work out for all. And well, understandably, he's the driver who's gained the most places of everybody in this race. And he'll be very pleased with that, as right now, well, running in 4th place in the Pro class, he's got Rush Young and Darren Sharples trying to catch up to him gradually in the rear of the picture. Young and Sharples, meanwhile, they've both gained a couple of places of their own. Sharples hasn't gained or lost any, he actually points out, in class. It's only overall where the old dudes in cars midlife crisis trial has made that steady progress. Well, some more progress may still be yet to come. But as he continues to get a bit closer to Young, who's all out sorts, they're coming out 3 into 4. Car weaving one way, then the other. Well, in the end, the Porsche driver able to get back together, but it does seem as though Sharples is coming a bit stronger. His teammate Casper Rotner are right behind there. And keep in mind, of course, the old dudes in cars drivers, they have raced very close and firmly with each other over the opening 2 rounds. And when I caught up with Darren in the build-up to today, well, firstly, he was just reminding me of the fact that the different team names there, and, well, the theme of the team names are the things that can affect old dudes. And, well, he makes his way on down, but he's also saying to me the fact that all the teammates are on the radio to each other and they enjoy battling each other as much as they do the other cars out of the circuit. Indeed, very friendly spirit there. When things do go wrong, they do immediately work their best to understand what went wrong, and immediately, well, it's a very relaxed atmosphere, so nobody really points the finger at each other, and they all have a laugh and then just settle down and love the racing, and that's what it's all about. But as we come from them back to the front of the field, whereas Henrik Riestrand right now leader, and he's on to the back there of a car he's about to put a lap on, and that is going to be Matthew Croft. And how it has gone from good to bad tonight there for Croft, as he will now officially go a lap down there. Riestrand on the inside into turn 1, and well, the Beta Ross driver here is wanting to get away from the Ford Mustang that is staying with him, Jakob Stofko, and Stofko right now comes down in towards turn number 3 and is looking very quick indeed. Stofko right now absolutely on a mission here to grind out the result and try and steal that win away, and Hayden Miller, meanwhile, 2 seconds back. You can see him there in the rear of the picture in the Corvette. Well, understandably, he's watching this at a distance of Phoenix Racing and thinking to himself, you know what, I might just be able to get involved as well. But we will see whether he is able to get involved. Again, there's a lot of time still in this one. From them, well, we do have a little bit of change going on further down the order, and I believe we've just had Andrea Miato. Well, in fact, there's a little bit of a connectivity issue from Miato. Hopefully that's not a sign of things to come, or potentially a potential early retirement from the race due to disconnection, which would be the equivalent of a real-life engine blowout or a car retirement, technical issue. Well, of course, we always keep an eye on those, because it's always a little bit worrying when we see a driver jumping up and down the timing tower due to the fact they are appearing and then they are not. But hopefully it's not going to go wrong for them. But meanwhile, coming to Shane Cotton here as he finds himself battling with Richard Simnor. Simnor on the inside of him there, in towards turn number 3. So Simnor continues his recovery drive. This is going to put Shane Cotton off balance here as he makes his way down the hill. And, well, looking to the inside is Martin Kenyon in the Lamborghini. Kenyon's going to go in for it here. This is going to be for 6th place in the Interclass. And, well, he gets it stopped. Cotton has to slam on the brakes even further, so he wanted to cut back in. But in the end, they all went a little bit deep on each other. And Grant Miller, meanwhile, Cotton's teammate here, immediately queues up behind and says, no, go on, Shane, go back at him. And once they come down the hill from 7 in towards 8, I think Kenyon might have just got that done quite comfortably, because the gap has actually opened up there. And it was intriguing. All 3 drivers all went into the corner quite at full pelt, but particularly between Kenyon and Cotton, I think Shane Cotton had thought that Kenyon was so quick on his approach on the inside that he would essentially overcook the corner and run deep. And as he went to cut back, he found a faithful Lamborghini there. And in fact, we can get a quick replay of that, because that was a good little battle between those drivers. And here we go, ladies and gentlemen, for a trip back in time. So as they made the way down, we begin, of course, with Shane Cotton battling with Richard Simnor. So Cotton went defensive, and Simnor then switching back to the inside, and this will put Cotton out. And this is where Martin Kenyon now saw the door was starting to open. However, he didn't go for it initially. What he decided to do was wait a little bit, because they made the way over the crest of the corner. We can see Cotton starting to fall back. And now this is where things got intriguing, because they powered the one down. Well, the distant camera shot there doesn't show you Kenyon's car until it's there, but you'll notice both drivers trying to outbrake each other. But I think Shane Cotton was hoping that Kenyon would go deep. He almost did, and then suddenly on the switch back there, Cotton found that that Lamborghini was absolutely perfectly parked to make sure it could take the place. But whilst this has happened, meanwhile, a little bit early on, we had this for Matthew Croft. It all went a bit wrong for our pole sitter in what was one of our pole sitters in the pro class of the previous rounds, but not here today. And in the end, the car snapping loose through Gap corner with no rear wing, went to the gravel, and well, understandably, the 113 driver at that point getting the car turned around and into the pits for a quick repair, and hopefully being able to turn that into what will be his one and only pit stop for the day as we return to your live racing. And so as we come back, still plenty of time to go as we make our way now, starting to make our way, I should say, in towards the pit window. And, well, we still do have the best part of 38 minutes left on the clock. And, well, as our drivers continue to push each other onwards, at the front of the field still, Riestrand and Stofko together. And this gap is not growing. If anything, it's actually really disintegrating here. And Strand making a small mistake there in towards turn number 3. And as they come on down now in towards the next braking zone, Well, I think at the moment for Henrik Strand, this is going to be a race where a lot of mental pressure is just building. Blue flag's being respected very well there by none other than Thomas Barshett, who steps aside very comfortably. But right now, the Norwegian driver here for Beta Frost, this is the most pressure we've seen him under so far this season. At the Sachsenring, he was fully in control with William Arneson. Meanwhile, at Daytona, of course, he forced his way into the lead in the late stages through grit and determination, only to make a mistake under braking at turn number 7, which saw him lose the win. But here right now, controlling the lead, well, control's probably not the word we would use here, unless he knows something we do not, because Stofko is breathing down his neck as we ride on board here with the Mirko Group M Esports 270 driver. And we're all over the back. Mustang on Mustang action here with the Corvette of Hayden Miller, only 2.5 seconds back, and looking to try and get involved when it can. We have had a big incident further down the order for Steve Hobbs, Harry Sierra and Richard Jones. We will try and get a replay of that when we can. Something's gone very wrong for all of those drivers, but meanwhile we're staying absolutely transfixed to the lead battle here as the Canadian driver of Stofko getting close, but he makes one out. Well, goodness me, a little bit of power oversteer there, and Stofko right now, when that dirty air, he can run very close, but it does seem as though the car struggles a little bit as soon as it gets within 2 to 3 tenths. That wall of dirty air is just absolutely abhorrent. As coming out the pit lane is Richard Simnor, so he's taking his one and only pit stop. He's done it early. That will be to essentially give himself as much clear track as possible and focus on delivering the lap. Simnor is going to try and go for the ultimate undercut on many of his inter and pro compatriots out on circuit. But right now, Strand struggles there coming out of turn 4. They're both struggling, our two leaders. They just can't seem to get the power down the way they want to. They're driving on ice here, both of them, on a very hot circuit. Those track temperatures will be causing the tyres to spike in temperature quite early on. Tyre degradation shouldn't be too high here, but it's definitely a big factor right now in the fact that our leaders, I think, they're both trying to drive each other into an error, essentially. They're putting each other under so much mental pressure. That is one way to take the lead of the race, of course, just pressure your rival into an error, and after that, the story is history. But meanwhile, we look to Justin Noel behind Robin Aston. The American driver here right now moving forward, representing his country proud with the car. As he comes out, he's chasing after your 14th place overall. As pit stops are definitely playing out between several drivers at the moment. Pasquarello's into the pit lane, so is Vinagre, so is Jones. I think these pit stops are only going to serve to mix things up even more as time gradually ticks away. Of course, we've got a long way to go in this race. We're not even halfway through yet, so therefore it does mean that those who are pitting right now are committing themselves to an undercut strategy, which there could be a lot of value in. But meanwhile, we come back to the front because Henrik Strand now finds a little bit of traffic in front of him. That's going to be the car of Martin Kenyon. He comes right up behind. And as they make the way through turn number 15 at Gout Corner, Strand gets so close he has to lift off the throttle, but it unsettles the car. This could be a change for a lead here as they make the way down the start finish straight, because Strand immediately cuts to what will be the inside. But look how he's positioned himself. He knows what Stofko's trying to do, and he's going to make sure Stofko can't find a way to get ahead here into the break-ins over turn number 1. This is smart from Reece Strand, using Kenyon as a rolling roadblock, but he hits the apex curb. That sends it wide. Here comes Stofko up the inside. They touch, and as they come down in towards turn number 3, Stofko's going to be on the inside all the way on the brakes, and suddenly the lead swaps hands. My goodness, it was close. It was gritty, but in the end, Stofko gave as good as he was being given, with Strand there using the lap down car as a little bit of a barrier, which is smart. He's legally allowed to do that. Stofko saw it happening, but in the end, with Strand just simply going too high on the curb at turn number 1, it saw the door open, and Stofko, if he had to trade some paint to do it, he was going to do it. And as they make the way up the hill, but right now, they want to clear Kenyon, who's still trying to keep the pace together. Kenyon here right now wants to stay ahead of them, understandably, and in fact he makes his way past there what is Richard Jones, as Kenyon gains another place, a 12th place in the interclass. And Martin Kenyon's got a lot of pace in that Lamborghini, but unfortunately an incident has cost him a lot of places earlier on. And well, as these drivers make the way on through right now, it is understandably one of those situations whereby I think our leaders here are going to find themselves coming up behind several drivers who have got almost the pace to rival them in some respects under race conditions. And therefore, while the blue flag rules do stay, of course, they're not F1 blue flag rules. They are rules which says that the car that's going a lap down has to essentially just drive predictably, and it's the responsibility of the leaders to find their way past, with the lap down car essentially facilitating the pass when it's about to happen. However, right now I don't think anybody wants the passes to happen, and Stofko, well, he's definitely got one up here on Strand, at least for now, but then again we've still got time in this race and it could all change very quickly. From there we come back to Justin Noel up the inside of Robin Aston in towards Portimão Ben. That's going to move into 14th place here now as he comes on down, and as he heads up the rise into the next braking zone, Robin Aston right there with him, with Max Wheeler as well. But through the left and into right they come down that hill, and these drivers now continuing to push each other under honest pressure. Meanwhile, Grant Miller and Robin Powney are together here. We have, of course, had a couple of inter-drives involved in an instant, and also a few inter-drives to take a pit stop. So we are starting to see a bit of a shuffling of what is your inter-runners as the Phoenix Racing driver makes his way on. As he does so in the number 80, well, behind him, Powney are there, keeping honest as best he possibly can, and Tom Wheeler just in front. It's a three-way fight for third in the interclass, but it could be for so much more, depending on how the strategy goes, or a little bit less. We will see as time gradually ticks away. But as we do, we need to take a trip back in time, I should say, to an incident that happened earlier on. We're not going to do it quite yet, however, because we want to stay transfixed to this absolutely brilliant battle as we ride on board the front bump here of Robin Powney, the sim coach driver, who started 6th in class today with a bit of a difficult qualifying session, but now chasing Miller down. Tom Wheeler, of course, the biggest gainer of all three of them, having started in 10th of the class. Well, he's up into the podium points here as they make their way into the braking zone. Sparks fine there from the undertrail of the Ford Mustang. Powney getting a bit closer now. As Miller getting way too close, but he's going to look for the move. There's a tap. It's going to send Wheeler round, and he goes all the way round. A tiny touch, and Tom Wheeler in the end goes spinning out of contention for that third place, at least in a moment. And the three-wheeler racing by Phoenix driver will be fuming at that one. No, that's not quite worked out. And will Shane Cotton's also coming through as they head down towards the breakers over turn number 5. But will Wheeler here decide to come to the pits at the end of this lap 9 with the rear bumper missing? It's going to be some significant damage to the car. I suspect so, because that is going to make the car a lot less stable at the rear and also cause some late drag down the straight. Shane Cotton, meanwhile, well, he'll be grateful for the place, albeit he won't be grateful to have heard how it's happened. Albeit, to be fair, one driver's loss is another driver's gain. You've always got to think that way when you're in the car, when you see an incident ahead and it's not your fault. But as he makes his way up the hill, he's just got to try and keep it together, as Wheeler's going to do the same here for the remainder of the lap. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we do take a trip back in time to look at some big moments, including firstly what happened to Hobbs, Sierra and Jones as they were all caught up in a little bit of an altercation. This was Steve Hobbs making his way down towards the braking zone for turn number 5. Behind him was Richard Jones and Harry Sierra a bit further back. And, well, it was Sierra on the inside, made contact there. And, unfortunately, Richard Jones a casualty on the outside. And what you could see, in the end, what Hobbs was trying to do was trying to reverse the car off the road. I don't think he realised at that point was that Jones was going around the outside of him. And, therefore, Steve Hobbs adding to the incident. But it is the way it's gone for both drivers there. And Harry Sierra coming in absolutely razor hot. But it didn't quite work out the way he wanted it to. We then had this for Andrew Fellows only a moment later. This was Fellows coming down for turn number 14 to get the power on. And as he made his way out the corner, goes deep onto the marbles of the left side tyres, and it goes around as quickly as that. So a bit of a frustrating moment for him. And then we just had this moment in the battle between Grant Miller and Tom Wheeler. This was on lap number 17 for third place in the interclass. And well, Wheeler on the outside, then Miller saw the door open, went as far in as he could at time under braking, and unfortunately Tom Wheeler there, he would argue turned into him. Wheeler would argue he was touched there when there wasn't the overlap, but I think it is going to be one of those incidents where the stewards will definitely have to have a critical eye on it, because it could go either way based on the camera angles we've seen so far. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's make our way back to live circuit pictures. And so we come back, even more to come, no doubt about it, as we now make our way into the second half of the race. So we've completed a good amount of distance. There's still more distance to come. There's still plenty to be done. And whether you look down the field or all the way towards the front of the field, there is fighting going on everywhere. As Harry Shaw right now, well, he's second of your pro drivers. Still trying to chase down Kyle Roy, but Roy is 14 seconds clear at this time. So I think the Iron Apex esports driver at this point just thinking to himself, okay, how exactly do I catch up to the man in front of me? And the answer, we just got to try and keep putting the laps together. But of course, Roy picking up the pieces after it all went wrong for so many on the opening couple of corners on lap number 1. But if Shaw was to take second place today, this would still be a huge injection of points, and his championship campaign would be definitely starting to build the momentum he's been looking for. However, what's happened off camera, we have had an incident for Name Mayer, who's dropped down the order, and in fact quite sizably dropped down the order, I do believe, to 6th place in the pro class, and what was looking to be a potential podium at one point. We're going to try and get a replay of that when we can. That's happened off camera on the previous lap. So therefore, Darren Sharple's right now, not too far behind. He's chasing off to short in the distance. He's bringing Casper Rotner still with him. And then Ross Young, he's looking for a podium spot in the pro class. The DXT Motorsports driver can't quite find it at the moment, but he has got Justin Noel over the back of him. And Noel sends a signal there, which is is, can you let me through, please, Ross? And, well, I think Ross right now, we're looking over his shoulder and suddenly realising Noel wasn't asking, he was more essentially saying, I'm going to do it. But Young there outbrakes him in towards Portimão bend. You can see right now Noel very keen to make this move as quickly as he can. Young just holding onto his line. Remember, they are both on the same lap. They can fight for track position if they so desire. And we'll understand me here, Ross Young just enjoying his own race and hoping that just Noel, when he makes the move, he'll make it on the start finish straight and therefore cost both of them the least amount of time. Although if you are Justin Noel, understand me at his perspective, you would think that what he's thinking is, I need to get past this guy as soon as I can, just because he's costing me time and I want to go chasing after Casper Brockner, who is 2.5 seconds up the road. But into the pit comes Ross Young, so in the end Noel will get the place, albeit had to do it on the start finish straight, and he will power his way along as Ashley Brooks is also into the pits from 5th place in the Pro class. So some more pit stops are now playing out for our drivers as we are getting closer and closer to the emptying of the fuel tanks. From them, Jakub Stofko, here he is your leader, but the leaders over on in elite are coming up behind even more traffic here, and that traffic is causing a little bit of what is congestion here for Henrik Strand as he makes his way on past there, the car that pulled aside of none other than Eduardo Royes, and we also do see there Stofko making his way up the inside of the next car in the sequence of Andrew Montine. But the point being here, the Beta Frost driver right now, because of the way the traffic has fallen for him in the middle half of the lap, it does mean that Hayden Miller has been able to catch up and Stofko has been able to walk away a little bit. So the traffic gives, the traffic takes, and as they all come through, they take their way past, whereas Andrew Montine and now Stofko, Strand and Miller all together once again separated by only 2 seconds in total, which is definitely going to make things very interesting between them all as they come on down the hill. Because for the simple reason now, understandably, we've got 3 leaders together so close, and a bit of fuel saving here could suddenly see one of them spring ahead of the other, alternatively leaving the others in the dust. And that's where Hayden Miller comes in here. We do know the 281 Scotsman. He is a very competent driver when it comes to fuel saving. We have seen it in previous seasons of the GT3 Championships. We've seen it also in the America's GT Challenge Championship in the GTE Corvette. He has this knack on strategy just as much as he does on race pace. And could that be the way he gets ahead here today if he can't do it through overtakes? They are all equally matched on pace, at least over the last few laps they have been. So it's all to play for. As meanwhile, Rhys Saunders has come in from what was at the time 4th place in the class. He was a bit further back. Therefore, more pit stops are still coming on through. But as to what's happening further down the field, well, Alexander Wingmark, he's yet to pit, but he's now up to 6th place in the interclass. When he does pit, I suspect we are going to see the Beta Frost driver make his way on down. And I must admit, I do love that profile photo there, where essentially he's saying he's a sloth behind the wheel of the car. But to be fair to the Norwegian driver, that's not what he looks like, we should point out, ladies and gentlemen. It's an artist's rendition of what he may look like, I suspect. But he comes on through turn of 13 into towards 14. Right now, the Beta Frost driver here enjoying a very solid performance, to be fair. He's made up some good ground in this race, and a top 10 and a good haul of points would not be amiss for the Beta Frost driver come the end. We'll have to see how he's able to piece it all together once the pit stop is complete. But of course, the top 5 of your interclass is definitely looking a lot closer than it has over the last couple of rounds in some respects, because there is Miller, there's Pioneer, then there's Cotton, and you'll find 2 seconds behind him is Tom Wheeler, who's still soldiering on, despite missing the rear bump on his Ford Mustang after the contact with Miller at turn number 3, the corner they've just left, the best part of what was 6 laps to go. But as the three-wheeler racing by Phoenix driver makes his way onwards, well, right now, whether he's driving the Ford Mustang here today, or indeed some other machinery that he's driven both on the simulator, or indeed, I do believe, what is his own BMW M2 that he drives in real life and does plenty of track days in. Well, I'll tell you one thing right now, Wheeler definitely maintaining the pace. He is looking quick out there. And, well, the Wheeler family, they're not a motorsporting family, but they do have a bit of history racing karts in their earlier days, both Max and Tom. I wonder when they'll get Harvey into it if they haven't already. But meanwhile, Justin Noel makes his way around the outside there of Alexander Wingmark on the exit at turn number 5. So that's going to be for 28th place. That's a place that has been changed up, albeit Noel has pitted. Meanwhile, Wingmark has not. And for Justin Noel, well, this has not quite worked out, I think, the way the American driver wanted it to. He has found a lot of traffic, and he's also found several drivers who have pitted as well as him, including Ashley Brooks, Andrew Ross Young, and Nathan Anstis. So at this point, he's now got to think to himself, okay, I'm going to have to fight my way past them all. Now, the opposite side of the coin here is the fact that he has what is quite a gathering of drivers ahead of him who have pitted. He has got Brooks, Young, Ansted. Miato has not pitted, as we understand it. In fact, he may have now that I double-checked my records. And then we do have Pasquarello and Philip R. So therefore, he has got 7 drivers ahead of him who have pitted, and he's got a long gap before he does get to the man who leads those who have made the pit stops, of Rhys Saunders for LG3M Esports. And right now, the 291 driver here, he seems to be in control of his own destiny here for a top 5 in the elite class and overall. But we will see what the strategy will dictate on that, because understandably, with everyone else staying out long at the moment, and him buying himself some clear track, this may actually help him in the long run, particularly when he's looking to try and beat these guys of Jakob Stofko, Henrik Riestrand, and also Hayden Miller as they come down towards turn number 1 this time. Well, we're almost now to the 40-minute mark. They're on to lap number 23. Stofko, Strand, and Miller, they are all separated by only 1.5 seconds, and Strand is back to Stofko at the moment. We thought Stofko was making the break given the way things have gone, but I wonder if he's decided to turn the wick down slightly to save some fuel, knowing that if he keeps trying to push too hard, the very thirsty Ford Mustang is actually going to come back to bite him on the backside and force him back down the order. A lot of intrigue left in this race, understandably, just simply because, particularly between these three, it's going to come down to strategy and then a sprint to the finish. But Miller's the one that everyone's going to be looking at in this group, just because of the fact he's caught up to this very gradually. He's been aided a little bit by the traffic, but also the fact what fuel saving has he been doing to bring himself into this group. That is the question. As he comes up the hill this time, much better run through turn number 8 compared to Strand. They went very deep off the corner. So Miller again really building up now as he gets closer and closer. And right aboard here inside the car of Miller. Towards turns 10 11. I think he's now starting to build a bit more aggression. I think it has been a gradual run the race at about 90%, and now with the pit stop not too far away, I wonder if mentally he's now moved into 100% mode and is actually thinking, you know what, I might be able to take second place off a Strand before I come into the pits, or if not, I'm going to put him under some mental pressure and just simply see if I can get him to pit prematurely here to pull himself out of this order. Because that's one thing you can do as well. If the driver in front of you feels that you're gaining quickly, it may actually force them to reveal their hand a lap or two before they plan to, because their thought process will be, well, actually, I don't want to fight with the guy behind me, I might as well come into the pits. But of course, you're then sacrificing strategy. But that's all thrown in the bin there, all the theory, because suddenly, in reality, into the pits has come from the lead of the race. Jakob Stofko makes his way on down. He decides enough is enough, and now he makes his way to a stop, and there'll be a load of fuel going in that car very quickly before he then does, of course, potentially change 1 or 2 tyres alongside. But meanwhile, Henrik Strand and Hayden Miller, they stay on. And as they do, all these drivers right now, there's nothing in between the two of them. And another battle we haven't really talked about after what was a very sideways start to his race, coming through turns 1 and 2, William Arneson, the Beta Ross driver, who has, since that sideways start, now actually made his way back up to effective 6th place in the elite class and overall. And he is with Harvey Wheeler at the moment. So these two, what we believe, are fighting for 5th place in the class, with Reece Saunders having pitted. Arneson's done a brilliant job in recovering here, and in fact, lap time wise, the fastest man on the circuit on average is the man we're now looking at, Arneson. He has been quicker than the leaders to the tune of 2/10 a lap on average over the last 10 laps. He has been really going, and that's how he's been able to close the gap up. That means he's probably got a price to pay when he comes into the pit lane for fuel, but at least he's been able to bring himself back into the running order and demonstrate the fact if it were not for the spin at the start, he may have just been able to chase down the podium places. But then again, say it's not so, because we've still got a long way to go, and anything can happen in motorsport, and it normally does as they say. As he comes through Portimão Bend, keeping that pressure on into the pits meanwhile, and leaving the pits has been your leader, now 3rd place runner. Oh, hold up a second, who's that? That is Alexander Wingmark. Wingmark has had a run round there at turn number 4, and Wingmark's had it go very, very wrong as he tries to get it back together, recovering in the rear of the picture. But the man we were trying to talk about was Kyle Roy from Miracle Group M Academy, because he was your leader in Pro. He's pitted, and in doing so, he has brought him back out in 3rd place, and he's brought himself some clear track, because he's got Saunders 10 seconds up the road, and most importantly, he's come out ahead of Hobbs and Pownier. But put that story aside, Henrik Strand is now into the pit lane. The Beta Ross driver comes on down. Harvey Wheeler and William Arneson do the same. Hayden Miller, we thought he was going to go long. He stays out. He's been able to save the fuel to do another lap, and therefore he heads onwards. I think he'll be happy with this. But where is Stofko? Here he is as he makes his way down through turn number 14. And we look to the blimp camera here. This will give you an idea of where he is in relation to the pits as he makes his way on through. Strand, meanwhile, still being serviced. He's practically at the end of the pit lane here. He's got the perfect run down towards turn number 1. But meanwhile, there's Miller, and here is Stofko making his way on down, and he roars his way onwards. Where is Strand in all this? We look to the end of the pit lane. I think Strand's already out. Yes, he is. Henrik Riestrand has retaken what we believe at the moment, at least, is the effective strategic lead ahead of Jakob Stofko, but Hayden Miller has still to pit, so this now all hangs on the back of what the Phoenix Racing Corvette driver does over the next couple of laps and whether he can have an even quicker stop. And the stop times tell a story here. Henrik Riestrand, 14.73 seconds. Stofko, 17.52 seconds, an extra 3 seconds almost in the pits to put the fuel into the car, and therefore, well, now it's going to come down to whether Strand can just keep that gap open, because at 1.7 seconds, Stofko is going to feel a very slight slipstream off of the car in front, but it's not going to be enough to really help him on the straight. If the gap comes down to a second, he will suddenly start to gain considerably, but also pick up the dirty air that nobody wants through the corners. We will see. We're not far away then from seeing the final pit stop of the day for what will be the leader, and in fact, as soon as I say that, he makes his way into the pit lane. Here he comes. Hayden Miller now comes in from the lead of the race, but could this be to take the strategic lead, as also behind him into the pits becomes none other than Matthew Croft, the man who did fall a lap down, but is still trying to go to plan as best he can. But as Miller makes his way onwards, well, very slowly, of course, obeying the speed limit here, he wants to get that absolutely right. He doesn't want be a stop and go penalty for what will be speeding in the pit lane. There's Strand, there's Stofko, and no more questions here other than who's going to be coming out at the head of the group as he makes his way through the final quarter. Strand absolutely on attack here. He's on a mission to try and make sure it's him leading, but Miller is already leaving his pit box. He comes on down, still on the limiter for a little bit longer. Strand is coming down the start-finish straight. Here he comes. Miller will now build his way up to speed here as he makes his way down the hill. It's going to be very close, but I think Miller has just got ahead, literally by a hair. The gap is not even half a second by the time he gets towards turn number 2. Strand is there, but Miller has taken the lead of the race. Now can he hold on? Strand doesn't look up the inside into turn number 3. That would be way too far back to go for it, but we will see. That's how the top 3 are. But meanwhile, there's been a bit more battling behind, because Harry Shaw has got Darren Sharples catching up to him, and in the pit stops have been a complete reversal of fortunes. Shaw, who was a sizable amount of time ahead, the best part of 6 seconds, he's lost 5 seconds in the pits versus Sharples, and Sharples has caught up to him. This is for full place in Pro, and suddenly all the racing's erupted once again. But Sharples close here in the toe. Surely he's got to be thinking about a move here down towards turn 1 with the speed that Ford Mustang is carrying. There's no question mark about it here as they cover down, and well, Shaw defends the inside as Sharples looks around the outside, and well, no way through this time. But when you see Sharples trying to get under the skin of his rivals, they make their way in towards turn number 3. Not this time, but I suspect next time around he may try a different approach. He might try to mix things up, but we've got another hairpin coming up shortly, and when Sharples can get a good run over the hill, he may be able just to go for this, but the old dudes in cars midlife crisis driver is not quite able to do so. In fact, that far back at this point, that's to the degree of half a second here. There's no way he's lunging that. If he goes for it from that far back, well, I think even Daniel Ricciardo there would have to take a bow on that one. But meanwhile, as they make their way up towards turns 6 and 7, well, Casper Brotner half a second back, just watching behind his teammate here as they now make their way into the second half of the lap. Now from there, we need to come back to name Mayer, the man who ended up in a bit of an altercation earlier on, as he's going to look up the inside of Ashley Brooks, who's missing a rear wing. And well, Mayer goes all in there. Oh, goodness me. Well, he thought that there was the space available. Brooks, I think, was trying to close the door as much as possible. Mayer, in the end, well, I think he's got more black paint on the right-hand side of the car now compared to before. In fact, I think it's purple paint now that I get my eyes adjusted. But Mayer does make the plays, and Brooks loses it through turn number 7 with no rear wing on that car. The Exodus Sport Z driver, understandably, is going to be battling with a car there that's got a lot less rear downforce than he would like, but still he manages to bring it under control, not about losing the place to Richard Simnor nor to Javi Sierra, and Andrew Montine will be the next one to come through, so will be Craig Hewlett. And the two Exodus Sport drivers here, one for the Z team, one for the Y team, well, right now they're fighting over second place in the interclass here. My goodness, it's all kicking off, and well, we haven't got long left. We've only got a quarter of the race to go, but they've definitely left the best to last, as they say. And Montine and Hewlett here, well, Craig Hewlett, of course, he's chasing down the championship leader, but Hewlett would love to get one over his sister team driver, given the fact the Exodus Sport Y driver had it all go wrong for him last round after what was a very solid season open at the Saxon Ring with the win. But right now the number 4 driver here today finds himself right in the thick of the action, but it's not due to what has been disappointment, it's just due to the fact it's been such an intense race. He started second in class behind his teammate. They've both lost out versus Robin Aston, who picked up the pieces at the start with the lap 1 altercations, but as they make their way down towards turn number 1, I know Hugh that they're staying behind, and I think the game plan's going to be, if he'll make the pass early, he will, otherwise he might tuck him behind for a little bit and then try to go for the move later on. Now, whilst all this is happening, we do have to point out as well Martin Kenyon. He is on the back here of Steve Hobbs with Robin Powney 4 seconds back, and Kenyon right now is your 4th place runner in the interclass. So in his mind, he'll be thinking to himself one thing and one thing alone, which is that this has gradually come into his grasp very nicely, albeit as they make their way down towards what will be turn number 5. He's going to look up the inside here of Hobbs and hope that Hobbs just gives him the space to work with, and Kenyon then all up the inside there for DXT Motorsports, and as quick as that, he will take the place. And well, now Hobbs will tuck in behind him as we see Powney in the rear of the picture. Further back down the order, David Young and Neville Harris, they're going to fight over 9th place in the interclass. They're enjoying a good little scrap, and keep in mind that both of these drivers started well outside the top 10 in the interclass. They have been 2 of the smaller stars in the intergrid today, with the logistical nightmare racing driver hoping his BMW M4 Evo that he can make up at least one more place. We will see where we can do so. Harris, of course, in what's the Porsche 992 there, also holding his ground. After a bit of a slow start to qualifying, only joining qualifying in the final 10 minutes, in fact. But in the end, it's not about how you start the day, it's about how you end it. And I think he's hoping he can end it on a high here. We will see what's to be, as they have none other than what is your 6th place runner behind them. That's overall, with Harvey Wheeler looking to put a lap on them. But Wheeler right now, I think comfortable to run there for at least the time being. But at some point, I suspect he'll be hoping that they do give way to him, or at least show signs, as in the end, Young goes wide there at turn number 8 intentionally to let Wheeler go. As soon as I say it on command, it practically happens. Now, I can promise you that wasn't scripted at all. And well, David Young knowing exactly when to let it go, albeit that has cost him a bit of time there. That will cost him a second almost to what will be the man in front of him that he's trying to chase down. But he'll be hoping that Harvey Wheeler can do the same, therefore, to effectively what will be his rival Neville Harris. Well, as they separate for a brief moment, Eduardo Roy is there battling with Grant Miller. Miller up the inside of him. There are 2 different classes, but you would not be mistaken for the fact that Miller wants to get on through and chase down Robin Powney, who's only 4 seconds up the road, as it is a bit of a McLaren civil war here between the pro and the inter driver. Right now, what's it going to be? And the answer is going to be no move forward for Grant Miller, at least for the time being, as he heads down the hill. And to the next braking zone they go. And in the end, for Grant, it's going to be wait, watch and listen as he goes very deep on the brakes there. And well, I think right now Grant Miller just testing the limits of how far he can go into these braking zones in preparation perhaps for what will be a bit of a send at some point later in the race. But back to Name Mayer we come. He's battling with Richard Simnor, who's still on his recovery drive. And Simnor, who went all the way down to the back of the field, is now up to 19th place. Mayer's going to be the next target, understanding, right in front of him. And then it is a 14.5 second gap to Ross Young. Well, here comes Simnor up the inside. I don't think he's going to catch Ross Young before the end of this one, unless Ross has an absolute mother of all errors. We will see what would happen. But Simnor, at least now, he's done a very good recovery drive here to come all the way from 45th up to 18th place. So the car slides loose there down through turn number 14. And I think the DCW Racing driver here has just absolutely thrown the car at the circuit. And in the end, that explains why, essentially, it's got to the point whereby the 242 driver has absolutely gone on the attack. But as he does so, well, we come back to your leaders, ladies and gentlemen, and here is Hayden Miller for Phoenix Racing, and the 281 driver ahead of Henrik Strand at the moment at least. But it does seem as though Strand, for being close on what was the pit out lap for Miller, plus also the next couple of laps, the gap has actually slightly opened up with 10 minutes to go. It's opened up to 9/10. So can Strand get closer again? Stofko is 1.7 seconds back. He's pushing to try and catch up. They are all practically exchanging lap times as if it's going out of style on the stop floor, and therefore it is really going to come down to here if anybody makes a mistake. But hold up, into the pit lane comes Jakob Stofko. Oh, he's gone wrong. He's gone right out the final corner. Stofko's gone sliding loose, goes to rejoin. There's a car coming up behind him, and in the end there's plenty of space for William Arneson to see, but Stofko loses the podium spot. Reece Saunders is now up into third. Arneson comes up through as well, and Jakob Stofko gets it all wrong, and the Canadian driver right now is going to be absolutely muling this one over very quickly for the simple reason that that is a huge loss of points there, and he's got to go chasing now. But has he got anything left in the car to do so? Has the spin cost him all the time on the tyres? Will we take a look back to see what exactly happened, ladies and gentlemen? Goodness me, we said it wasn't all over yet in terms of drama, and here's a replay to explain exactly what happened. So Stofko making his way out of the final corner, and as he did so, well, the rear of the car had already let go there. The hot track temperatures and the rear tyres were warmed up. Oh my goodness. And well, some would say he's actually just got very lucky with that one. And indeed, how would you consider that luck? The fact that he hit the outside wall and that ricocheted him into the tyre barrier there. He has picked up sizable damage, but it actually stopped the car from going beyond the pit entry line. And if he had, he would have had to commit to the pit stop. Otherwise, it would have been a situation, or at least to the pit lane, I should say. Otherwise, otherwise it would have been a situation whereby he would essentially have to make that trip and he would have lost out to Harvey Wheeler as well. So he'll be grateful for that, at least for now, but that Ford Mustang will definitely be wounded. And the on-board, well, goodness me, this is what it looked like for inside the car. Listen in. And the rear let go at that point, and now he's just a passenger here trying to wrestle what is a boat completely out of control, and then hits the barrier. But thankfully, because he's only gone slightly into the pit lane, he can quickly get it turned around without the risk of picking up a penalty essentially for driving in the wrong direction on the circuit. Well done to Stofko for preventing that from going into a complete nightmare situation. And so back we come, and on board with Stofko here, making his way now down the start-finish straight, but he knows that time is of the essence here, and he's got to try and hold it together with Harvey Wheeler closing rapidly, and Wheeler in a much cleaner car at this point will be thinking to himself one thing and one thing only, which is I might be able to take that 5th place away from the Canadian driver. Miller and Strand then, it comes down to these two now for the remainder of the race, but note one thing, and that one thing is the fact that Miller has got traffic in front of him with both Nathan Anstis and also, in fact, that's Rob Windsor. Let me correct myself, it's the other car of the UK SimRacing team, but Rob Windsor being first. Windsor steps aside immediately, lets the car run out wide. Strand comes on through as well, but they've got several cars in quick succession. Tom Wheeler's next up, and then it is going to be Justin Noel and then Shane Cotton. This could definitely be a bit of a test here for what will be Miller in the last few laps of racing to see where he can negotiate the traffic without ending up under major pressure. Further back, we didn't quite catch on camera, and we don't have a replay of it, unfortunately, to give you. Craig Hewlett for Axis SimSport Y has found his way past Andrew Montine. The sister drivers for Axis SimSport have moved places. However, we can see that Montine is not falling away, and Martin Kenyon, in fact, is absolutely roaring up behind him. So is Robin Pownier here. The Axis SimSport Y and Z drivers, they've got to be careful, because I think they're at risk of losing the podium spots with Kenyon and Pownier so close on such a quick approach here. Meanwhile, also fights going on for podium spots. We do have Shaw versus Sharples, with Brockner behind, but Brockner's an elite driver, but it's Shaw and Sharples who are fighting over that final spot on the pro podium. But with all this, we come back to the front of the field. We're going to have, if only we could have a split camera here across the screen, ladies and gentlemen, but then again, you'd have so much going on at that point, it'd almost be in the position whereby you wouldn't know which way to look. We don't know which way to look at the moment, as the battle for the elite and overall lead continues its way, and well, onto a 30-second tour of the circuit under race conditions right now. Miller and Strand together, or thereabouts, and Strand now 3 tenths behind. Well, Hayden Miller has definitely made his way past the test of the traffic, but Strand is closing. He's now just got to pick the right place to make the move count. We will see what's going to happen as they come out of turn number 5 and up towards 6. Right now for Henrik Strand, this is looking to be an opportunity to take back the lead that he so much very well managed in the early stages until he lofted it out to Stofko. It went to Miller, and now can it come back to him? We will see as he tries to grab at the threads of victory. Meanwhile, Harry Shaw, he's got Sharples looking up the inside. Sharples goes all in here in towards turn number 1. And Shaw in the end sees it coming, leaves the door open, and Sharples there coming from quite far back. But to be fair, when the door was left open that much, I think in the end Shaw expecting to be able to give the run to the line. Well, he's going to have to go to the inside now as he goes deep there at turn number 3. He's definitely unsettled by Sharples' momentum. And over the rise they come. We look back from the rear of the Lamborghini coming down towards the braking zone. And the Iron Apex Speed Sports 157 here puts himself right in the middle of the road and says to Sharples, okay, if you want to play that game, right, let's go full defence at this point and bring everybody into this, because they've got Aston behind them by 4 seconds. Max Wiener and Nathan Anstis will be closing. Of course, they are all drivers. It's going to Anstis in different classes, so therefore it won't really have any implications for what will be the Sharples-Shaw battle for the final spot of the pro podium. But understandably, the more drivers he can get into the queue here, he might just be able to get them to put more pressure on Sharples and in turn interrupt the fight. We will see what's to be, as meanwhile Shaw does break away to a degree up the rises of turns 10 and 11. As he does, Craig Hewlett, he has got clear as, hold up a second, we're missing one of our inter-drivers. Where is Andrew Montine? He's nowhere to be seen at the moment. He's dropped away down, and there he is, as the car's twitching all over the place. What exactly has happened? We've had a tow to the pits of Javi Sierra in parallel to this. Has there been a bit of an altercation between the two of them? Because suddenly was looking to be a 2-3 for Axis SimSport in the interclass. Is now Craig Hewlett having to hold off Martin Kenyon in the 2nd and 3rd place spots, with Robin Pownier not too far behind. Well, we can give you a quick replay, ladies and gentlemen, and here it is to explain. It's not a happy moment for Andrew Montine, I can tell you that. So this was coming down through turn number 14, right behind Hewlett, with Kenyon approaching quickly. Javi Sierra was right in front. Out of 14 they went. Oh my goodness, the car just snatched on him. It completely swapped direction at the last moment. I don't think Montine would have been able to expect that coming. I think he got the power down and something just gave way. Was it while the tyres overheating, or was it that exit curve just yoinking the car out? Well, either way, a nightmare moment there for Andrew Montine. And well, we'd love to get more analysis of it, but we can't because we've got a win to see who's going to take. Let's head back to your live racing. And well, ladies and gentlemen, we come back to what is your final 3 minutes of racing here, no doubt about it. There's more to come, and Hayden Miller right now has, over the previous lap, been able to open up the gap slightly to 7/10 over Henrik Riestrand. And meanwhile, Reece Saunders behind, 11 seconds at this point. He's not going to be able to get involved in this, surely, unless the two leaders have an altercation. But either way, well, Miller and Strand, they both have earned the right to win this race, but only one can do so, understandably. Right now, Miller still holding on for a little bit longer. He's got this lap plus one more to go, if my mental mathematics is correct. And from then, we come back to the Shaw-Sharples battle. And well, Harry Shaw still holding on here for the third place spot in the pro class, albeit some of the moves that Darren Sharples has put on, I can understand if he's not too happy about them, but to be fair, Sharples, so far at least, has seen the doors open. He's decided to just put his very long 5-litre V8 engine right into that space. And well, he can't complain at that, nobody can, as they make their way in towards turn number 15. And meanwhile, further back down the order, Craig Hewlett and Robin Pownier are now fighting for second place. We have had an incident for Martin Kenyon, who's dropped out of second in the interclass. Where is Kenyon? I can't see him. I think he's disappeared, as in fact there he is, but I think Kenyon's had a bit of an error coming all the way through Portimão corner. We haven't quite caught a replay of it, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think we're going to be able to get it. In fact, we can very quickly get a replay of it, but this will be the last replay we get today, I suspect. Here's a quick look back. And this was Martin Kenyon in third at the time, chasing after Craig Hewlett, came out of turn number 8 and just slowing down there. Oh, I wonder if he picked up a slowdown penalty for track limits, but suddenly Kenyon lost all the pace. Pownier came through and got himself back together, but for Martin Kenyon, that is completely unexpected. That's got to be a slowdown of some description, or managing a technical issue in the car that he quickly got fixed. But back we go then, still more racing to come, and well, still more surprises to come, it would seem. But we are on to what will be your final lap here. Lap number 35, with under 1.5 minutes to go. We are guaranteed no more laps, and Hayden Miller still holds on just for that little bit longer versus Strand. The gap is now up to 8.5 tenths. Come the start of this lap, I think Strand may need to pull off a bit of a miracle now if he wants to close this down. Battles elsewhere. Meanwhile, Craig Hewlett fighting here with Name Mayer. This is an overall position. Pownier's queuing up behind here, and Hewlett right now wants to clear the elite driver as quickly as he can. Well, the pro driver should say as quickly as he can. Let me get the class right. For the simple reason, Pownier's there and trying to make the move on him. And Hewlett here will look up the inside in towards turn number 9. And as he does so, too wide here into Portimão corner. It's going to put Hewlett on a very wide line. Pownier sees the door's going to be open, turns in, and in the end he has to back off there. Hewlett sees him at last possible moment, but commits to the corner. And to be fair, if Pownier had dived his nose into that space, Hewlett would be in his right to essentially say that Pownier jumped into a space where the door was always going to close on him. And Pownier knew that. That's why he backed out the last possible moment there, but tried to get Hewlett to throw the steering wheel back open as there's contact there, and Hewlett sent across the road. Mayer there coming back across and making the contact with Hewlett by looks things, and Robin Pownier takes second place in the interclass. You couldn't make it up. Kenyon comes on through as Hewlett tries to get himself back together, and Martin Kenyon, who looked to be out of sorts for a podium, Sonny's back into the podium places, but they've got one more lap to go, these guys. Will we see a bit more of a fight? Harry Shaw, well, he's now got away from Darren Sharples with Casper Brotner behind, so therefore he might be safe, Shaw. But from them, we come to the man who took the lead on strategy. It was all part of the plan, and it is going to be great when the plan comes together, because Hayden Miller for Phoenix Racing takes his first win of the season ahead of Henrik Riestrand. Those will be your top 2 elites and overall, and then Reece Saunders will come through the final quarter to complete what will be the elite podium in the end, picking up the pieces when it all went wrong for Stofko. He rounds off the podium for Altitude 3M Esports, and the first 5 seconds back, William Arneson puts on a brilliant recovery drive to take 4th place, ahead of Stofko, who comes home in 5th, ruin what could have been. Harvey Wheeler will then finish 6th just behind him, and it's to Kyle Roy, who makes it his 2nd win of the season. Daytona was a blip, but the Miracle Group M Academy driver from Scotland makes the magic happen, ahead of Salvatore Ferradino, and here is Ferradino making his way out of the final quarter behind the pro winner. He will be your 7th place finisher in the elite class, in a solid drive today for Tartan Restech. 2nd on his debut in the pro class, Maxim Philippa, the Guest Up Motorsport driver, delivering well in the very stealthy Aston Martin ahead of Pietro Antonio Pasquarello, who completes your top 10. And for Harry Shaw, he holds onto the podium. Well done to him for Iron Apex Esports ahead of Darren Sharples for Old Dudes in Cars, with Casper Brotner there, 13th place. We then see Robin Aston makes it the win in the Interclass today for GP SimRacing Onyx, where everybody else had the race fall apart on them. Not so for him ahead of Max Wheeler. Nathan Anstis and Ross Young were behind him, with Richard Simnor. He will complete his recovery drive for DCW Racing to 18th place in the end as he comes across that finish line. And then it will be Robin Pownier, who is going to be second of the Inter drivers here at Portimão. Well, what a race it has been for the Sim Coach driver. It all went wrong at the start, but he got it back together in the end ahead of Steve Hobbs and Martin Kenyon. We're not quite sure what the issue was, but he got it sorted for DXT Motorsports and steals the podium away from Craig Hewlett after Hewlett's contact with Mayer. Grant Miller will take 5th place in the Interclass, 23rd on the overall road ahead of Andrew Montaigne, and Justin Noel there will take home 25th place ahead of Nate Mayer, who comes across the line shortly in 26th, and he will be your last lead lap finisher in this one. He comes on through, and in terms of how the other debutants finished the race, well, Eduardo Ruiz in the end brought it on home in 9th place in the Pro class, 27th overall, the first of the lap down drivers. Well done to the Axis SimSport Y driver from Spain, brilliant effort from him. And of course Justin Noel, you saw only months ago, 25th overall and 12th in the elite class. But goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, what a race, no doubt about it. It kept us guessing every step of the way, but for Hayden Miller today, as he crawls the pit lane, I think he's going to need a push to get up the hill. The Phoenix Racing driver absolutely nailing it on fuel, and he takes a win. He's been chasing after for so long this season, but it has finally come his way. But there's been so many great stories. Robin Aston as well, what a drive from the GPX SimSport Onyx driver, making it from 23rd, I should say, into 14th in the end. And, well, the number 25 driver taking the Inter win, a brilliant drive from the Briton, and he will now have made his mark in the Interclass, and everyone will be wary of the fact it's the Interclass that just keeps on giving here in this season of racing. But as everybody cools them down, of course, it's time for those race results, subject to any Stewards inquiries, and here they all are. And as we can see, after an absolutely brilliant and highly unpredictable 60 minutes of racing, and we did have to ask ourselves the question, in the sunshine of Portugal, would it be much more straightforward compared to the wet weather of Daytona? Well, the answer is no, it was not. And we got to see for round number 3 of the Autodrome International du Algarve for season 17 of the UKSimRacing Sunday GT3 Championship hosted by SimRacing International. It was Hayden Miller who took the win in the end for Phoenix Racing by 1.1 seconds over Beta Frost Henrik Riestrand. Reece Saunders completed that top 3 for Altitude Freedom Esports. Now, in the end, he was never going to catch the leaders, but he was able to hold a stable 4th place that became a 3rd when it all went wrong for Jakob Stofko. William Arneson also picked up an extra place to finish 4th for Beta Frost after his sideways excursion at turn number 1. But Jakob Stofko, meanwhile, the Mirko Group M Esports driver, chasing down the win, leading a good portion of the race, but heavy on fuel, and in the end got it wrong through Galp corner towards the very end and almost made it a second run through the pit lane. Well, the Canadian driver had to settle for 5th, but knowing it could have been far, far worse. Harvey Wheeler in the end, classified 6th there for Free-Wheeler Racing by Phoenix, couldn't quite catch up to Stofko at the end, but still a great effort from him ahead of Kyle Roy, who was your pro winner. 7th overall for Mirko Group M Academy, and another huge result for him. But knowing today he had to survive the opening few corners and pick up the places that everybody else dropped and then just run away with it. Salvatore Ferrandino, he finished in 8th place there, the Tartan Restec driver. A quiet race respectively, but at the same time, also a good one from him and some good points. Head of Maxime Philippard, the Belgian driver there for Gassed Up Motorsport. And what a debut drive from him. 2nd in the Pro class and enjoying also his first overall top 10. Pietro Antonio Pasquarello finished in 10th place there for Tartan Restec, knowing it wasn't quite his day today necessarily, but then again it hasn't been the day today for the team for the most part, with Harry Shaw there just behind Best the Rest in 11th place and rounding off the pro podium for Iron Apex Esports. Darren Sharples chased him honestly all the way through, but it was 9/10 the end between the two, and behind the Old Dudes in Cars Midlife Crisis right, it was the sister team car from Amnesia of Casper Brotner, and in 14th place it was your Inter winner of Robin Aston there for GPX SimSport Onyx, who drove home an absolutely brilliant race to take his maiden win of the season. Max Wheeler took 15th there for Free-Wheeler Racing by Phoenix in the Audi R8, continuing to give us plenty to look forward to in that Audi week in, week out, no doubt about it, with Nathan Anstis there in 16th ahead of Ross Young, and then it was a further 10 seconds back to Richard Simnor in his recovery drive for DCW Racing, and Robin Pownier rounded off a run to 2nd place in the Interclass, knowing what looked to be an outside chance for a podium, suddenly materialised right at the end. Steve Hobbs completed your top 20 behind his SimCoach teammate, but ahead, meanwhile, of none other than your third place finisher on the Inter podium of Martin Kenyon, who had it all slip out of his hands, and then only a lap later he could suddenly grasp it once again and takes home the final Inter podium spot. He was ahead for DXT Motorsports, ahead of Axis SimSport Y's Craig Hewlett, who'll be absolutely fuming with how his race ended in that contact with Nate Mayer, with Grant Miller there completing the Inter top 5 in 23rd place for Phoenix Racing, and it could have been a podium for himself today as well, but it went wrong in the early stages. Andre Montine was just behind for Axis SimSport Z, and then your last lead lap finishers were Justin Noel and Nate Mayer, and it was a lap down there to Eduardo Royes, Shane Cotton, Tom Wheeler and Rob Windsor, and outside that top 30 as well, the lap-down thing continued from 31st drive Matthew Croft through to Hendrik Zilka, Ashley Brooks, Gilles Lecky, David Young, Andrew Fellows, Alexander Vingmark, and it was 2 laps down to Neville Harris, had a 3 laps down finisher Javi Sierra, and then sadly we did come to your retirees for this race of Alex Brown, who was 8 laps down when he retired, 40th as classified for Slow and Steady Racing, and we also did see non-finishes for Thomas Barjuk, Andrea Miato, Richard Jones, Nuno Vinagre, Nick Parks, and James Connolly, who sadly did retire on the opening lap. But now we head to the classes, because this is where the points are paid, and as we see in the elite class, it was a win for Hayden Miller, his first of the season, and what a drive from him, using strategy to outsmart his rivals today for Phoenix Racing, head of Henrik Riestrand. The beta fast driver, well, he came back out in second and tried to put some pressure on Miller, but in the end the tyres just could not give him what he wanted, and he had to settle for that second place spot. Had a Rhys Saunders, who was third best in this running order in the end, albeit knowing that third place did come into his hands when Stofko got it wrong, but to be fair, you've got to get it right to get to the finish line. Behind the Altitude 3M esports driver, it was William Arneson there on his recovery drive for Beta Frost. Gutted it wasn't a podium, but I think given all things considered, he'll be happy with the 4th place ahead of Stofko. He'll be absolutely dismayed at the fact what was a guaranteed podium, if not a chance at the win, it all fell apart at Galp Corner right at the end. But still, it was not in the bin for him, for Miracle Group M Esports, nor was it one for Harvey Wheeler for Three-Wheeler Racing by Phoenix, and it was a further 18 seconds back to Salvatore Ferrandino, his Tartan ResTech team finishing in 7th and 8th respectively, because his teammate there, Pietro Antonio Pasquarelli, was behind. Casper Rotner for Old Dudes in Cars Amnesia and Three-Wheeler Racing by Phoenix's Max Wheeler completed your top 10, and then we did see Richard Simnor best the rest in 11th place in that recovery drive ahead of Justin Noel on his debut, with then 3 laps down as classified for Javi Sierra, and it was retirements for both Andrea Miato and Nuno Vinagre. From the elite class then, we come to the pro class. And here we can see in the pros, well, the story was one name at the very top, Kyle Roy. However, qualifying did not suggest that, but over the race, with the way it went from 4 to 3 to 2 to 1 wide through turn number 3, where it all went a little bit wrong for many of the drivers, particularly the Axis SimSport drivers, but not for the Miracle Group M Academy driver, who steered clear of all the danger and brought on home his 2nd win of the season. It was 17.6 seconds to Maximilian Philippard, who in the end took the runner-up spot there for Gassed Up Motorsport, also with a stealthy drive through the field, and also good qualifying points to back it up. Harry Shaw took 3rd place, meanwhile for Iron Apex Esports, surviving in the early stages, but in the end under huge pressure for the second half of the race from Darren Sharples, but Sharples could not quite find a way ahead. Still, the Old Dudes in Cars Midlife Crisis drive will definitely feel as though he can get the measure of his rival next time, and behind the two was the Englishman Nathan Anstiff for UKSimRacing Manish, who went under the radar to take a solid 5th place. Ross Young took on home what was 6th place there for DXT Motorsports ahead of Steve Hobbs, with the SimCoach driver heading ahead of Nate Mayer, the Tartan ResTech driver in the end with a slightly bruised Aston Martin, but you're hoping for more next week. He was ahead of Eduardo Royes, who was a lap down there for Axis SimSport Y on his debut, but ahead of Rob Windsor for UKSimRacing McNish. It was also a lap down there for 11th place best of the rest finisher Matthew Croft, who'll be absolutely gutted with the way the race went, particularly when the rear wing came off the car so early on, and in the end the car became very dangerous to drive, and through Galp Corner it all went into the gravel, and that's really what earmarked his decline down the order. The Axis SimSport Z driver in the end, well, he'll be looking for better next time, as will Hendrik Zilka for Old Dudes in Cars Amnesia, and also for Ashley Brooks there, who was the last of the finishers. Coming to the interclass, last but by no means least, and what we can see here is that Robin Aston was your winner in the end for GPX SimSport Onyx by 25 seconds. However, do not let the margin tell you that Aston dominated today, because the story was very different. However, he was the one who was able to make his way through the field and steer clear of the danger when it all went wrong for so many others. However, on the road to recovery, Robin Pownier made his way to 2nd place in the end for SimCoach, just ahead of what was Martin Kenyon for DXT Motorsports, and Craig Hewlett, again, we'll be looking at Alison thinking, why was I not on that podium? And the answer is because of the late altercation we saw between him and Neymar. Grant Miller as well, 5th place there for Phoenix Racing, taking the place off of Andrew Martin right at the end, when Martin's own late incident cost him dear, along with an early incident in the race cost him a chance at the win. The Axis Sport Z driver will be looking to come back as strong as possible next time out, and it was a lap down for Phoenix Racing's Shane Cotton, who enjoyed plenty of fighting in the mid-portion of the race ahead of Tom Wheeler, and the three-wheeler racing by Phoenix driver will be thinking to himself, on another day without that contact with Grant Miller, could he have been on the podium or at least in the top 5? Well, it's always a what-if question if not. Gilles Lequy took 9th place, the priority ahead of David Young, with a logistical nightmare racing driver, in the end getting the upper hand on his battle with Neville Harris. And between the two of them, there was Andrew Fellows and Alexander Vingmark. Then we saw Harris in 13th place, ahead of Slow and Steady Racing's Alex Brown, the first of the retirees, and the retirement theme continued for Thomas Barjuk, Richard Jones, Nick Parks, and James Connolly. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our rundown of the results. Of course, all subject to stewards' inquiries, as always. And with that, that brings our racing here in Portugal to a close. But before we begin to wrap up, it's only fair that we bring you the standings for the first time this season. And without further ado, here are the standings then, provisionally, after our opening 3 rounds, beginning with the Elite Drivers' Championship. And as we can see, after 3 rounds, it is Henrik Riestrand who has returned to the top on 270 points, ahead of William Arneson's 232, the gap of 38 points there, and it is the run of second place finishes for the Norwegian driver right now that is giving him the consistent form to lead the way. Arneson will be hoping for a much more straightforward day next time out, given the fact he's only ahead now of what is Rhys Saunders based on result countback, with his win to the 2 third places of Saunders for Alchi Frem Esports. Andrea Miato, well, today it was a non-finish, and therefore he'll be absolutely gutted to think that until the drop scores come along, he will be sat 4th, but he'll now know as well that the Algarve circuit will be his drop score for the season, and he can't afford any more poor rounds. He's ahead of Jakob Stofko by only 24 points, and it's a further 12 to Pietro Antonio Pasquarello, who's hunting down the top 5. Casper Ottner sits in 7th, yet to really hit his stride, but finished inside the top 10 consistently, as the same for Harvey Wheeler, excluding that non-finish, of course, at Daytona. He's ahead of his fellow three-wheeler racing teammate of Max Wheeler there by only 16 points, and then Salvatore Ferrandino completes your top 10. Outside the top 10 to complete your elite top 12, it's Richard Simnor and Hayden Miller. And, well, of course, Hayden Miller after 2 non-finishes with a technical issue in round number 1, and what was being caught out by the wet in round number 2. A first win on the board, his first 100 points, and will we see it continue next time out? We'll have to see. As for the pro class, meanwhile, here we can see after 2 wins and an 8th, it is Kyle Roy who is now starting to build an advantage ahead of Ross Young, who after his 2nd place in the season opener has yet to be able to recapture his podium finishing form. That's the gap between the 2 there, and then we can see Nathan Anstis in 3rd place, and his consistency definitely starting to shine through with 2 top 5s on the bounce now, and only behind Young based on result countback. Matthew Croft is a further 2 points behind there, the winner of round number 2. Well, he's going to be coming into this one thinking that it's going to be his time to shine next time out, as the Axis SimSport driver has Steve Hobb for the close company, only 10 points behind. The SimCoach driver is ahead of Darren Sharples by a further 6, and then Sean Connor in 7th place, who wasn't on the grid for this round, but we look forward to seeing the Connor Bros Racing driver back in full force next time out, because indeed it's not quite the pro class if we don't have the Connor Bro driver. We then do have Rob Windsor in 8th place there, 20 points behind, but still the best part there of 34 ahead of Bruno Tiago Canero Patica, and the Portuguese driver not able to race on home soil today, unfortunately. Would have loved to have seen whether he could have gone for gold, but still ahead of Hendrik Zilka there by the best part of 2 points. Maximilian Philippard and Harry Shaw complete the top 12 of the pro class, and as for the interclass, we can see it's Andrew Montina who leads the way for Axis SimSport ahead of Craig Hewlett. The 2 separated by 12 points, but knowing that today it could have been podium finishes for both in the class, it was not, and that has opened up a doorway for others to chase them down. First on the list, Robin Pioneer with 2 back-to-back 2nd place finishes, and Martin Kenyon the next up, a further 16 points behind for Dexterous Motorsports MX. The gap between these drivers right now looking very close and tasty, and Grant Miller would love to see himself in that battle. He just needs a podium finish, and he may just be able to walk into it. Until then, he is the best part there of none other than 48 points behind. Alexander Vingmark, his consistency is being rewarded as he sits in 6th for Beta Frost ahead of Tom Wheeler. And then we do have Shane Cotton, Nick Parks and Gilles Lequy completing the Inter top 10, with then being a further 4 points to David Young, with 2 10th place finishes on the bounce. Can he move higher in the top 10 next time out? We look forward to seeing him try. And then we do have Robin Aston completing the Inter top 12 there, with the win after 2 retirements. Definitely getting a win on the board, a critical one, and now he's got to build upon the foundations. As for the team's championship, and here we can see your team's top 10, And what we can see is that Beta lead the way, and they have quite an advantage early on. 62 points to their advantage to the Axis SimSport team there of Axis SimSport Y. And then it is SimCoach who complete the top three by 32 points adrift from their neighbours. But in turn, they're only 4 points ahead of Dexterous Motorsports Zemex. And right now, the fight for third is going to be the big talking point going into the next round, because just behind, and it's only result countback that separates them, it is none other than Miracle Group M Esports, who sit there in 5th place. And in turn, they have a sizable gap and an advantage there to the tune of what is 68 points over the Tartan ResTech. Now, of course, the fight for 6th will be another talking point with 2 points further back, UKSimRacing McNish, and it's a further 6 points to Altitude 3M Esports, and it's a further what is 0 points. Indeed, result countback comes in here for Phoenix Racing in 9th, and then we do have a further 10 points to Old Dudes in Cars. Indeed, it is so close right now, and then we're going to be kept guessing as to who's going to be inside the top 10, let alone who's going to be inside that top 5. But we will continue the story of the standings as of our next round, of course. But with that, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now thinking, I want to be on the grid for this season, or at least get myself on the reserve list, or get ready for the future season of this championship, or any other race at SimRacing International, well, it's really easy to do. First, all you got to do is use the link at the bottom of the screen to join our official Discord. And indeed, when you join the Discord, get yourself signed up to be part of the community. You won't find a more friendly and welcoming community that may operate out of the United Kingdom, but it is an international community. Whether you're tuning in right now from the UK, America, Japan, you name it, you've got a place on this grid. And whether you're an esports professional all the way through to rookie, we would love to have you here. And if you do join the community, you can get involved in any of our ongoing series, which include, of course, our GT3 Championship on Thursdays, which we run every Thursday evening with 120 drives across 2 splits. Well, you've been tuning in today, of course, to the UK SimRacing Community Sunday GT3 Championship, which runs every Sunday evening in its 17th season. We, of course, also do have on Friday evenings a trip back in time to the peak era of the GTEs, where we race those in our inaugural championship on Friday evenings. But if you're looking at something a little bit more casual, perhaps, or something just to gradually build up your experience of league racing, we, of course, do have our practice league, which does run on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. So there's never been a better time to be on the grid here at SimRacing International, and we would love to see you as part of the community. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our series and league sponsors, who do include at Carmate, Modern Technology, the GP2 Group, and lastly, Motorsport UK's esports division. A huge thank you to them for continuing to recognise us here at SimRacing International as a recommended community. We appreciate that status, and long may it continue throughout 2026. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, attention now turns to our next round. And after the sunny skies of Portugal, well, we're going to be heading back to the Sunshine State of the US of A. We head back to Florida, but there is a guarantee this time there will be some sunshine, as our drivers will be taken on for the first time in the history of the UK SimRacing GT3 Championship, the Miami International Autodrome. A circuit known for its weaving bends, its long straights, but also the fact that being in the dirty air of another car is just as much a strength as it is a weakness. So who exactly you might be able to covet track position and take pole position in their class next time out, and who can convert it to victory? We'll find out then, as we invite you to tune into all the racing as if it were live on Monday the 2nd of February 2026 for round number 4. But until then, you've been tuning in to the UK SimRacing Sunday GT3 Championship. I have been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, and until next time here at SimRacing International, as always, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, like our drivers, remember to stay on track. Good night.